We're recording.
Meeting, please come to order. Barbara, please call the roll.
We have Commissioners Levine, McLean Hill, Noonan, and Vasquez present.
This proceeding is broadcast on Channel 35. The exact broadcast times can be found by contacting Channel 35. I'd like to shift the agenda around a little bit. I do have some opening remarks, but I would prefer to defer them until Commissioner Barad gets here. I think she is intending to be here. And we do have 19 public comments under general public comment, but because we have a special guest here for item 3, I'd like to call on the General Manager for his report, and then we'll go to public comment after that.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Since our last meeting, we've had 2 water main breaks, and I'd like Rich Harisick to just give a brief summary, and then I'd like to call Deputy Chief from the Fire Department up to recognize their efforts.
Good.
Thank you. We do have some slides, so as Rachel brings that up, these are being presented to you because of their significance in the size and the scope, and the scope in the sense of how many and different 4 corners of water and power were involved with this, as well as others within the city and the community. At the table, joining us is in the center is Breonna Lindsay, who's the director of our Water Distribution Division. To his left is Jeff Bray, and to his right is Alvin Bautista. Jeff is the assistant director, and Alvin is senior manager in that division. And they're the ones that fixed it. The breaks started, as all things, the weekend before Christmas, just to make it convenient and to challenge our staff. What's maybe usual and not unusual is this line on the first slide there, fellas, is that there wasn't any particular leak history on this line. All the normal reasons why you may have a break on the line have not presented themselves. We still haven't figured out exactly what was the cause of the break. It was not corrosion, which is usually the thing you automatically think of on an old pipe, because it was installed in 1922, cast iron pipe, 24-inch in diameter. And the initial thought is that probably something occurred in the installation process. So those are kind of the specs of where it was when it started, 5 a.m. Friday morning, December 21st. On the next slide, you can see a little bit of the scope. So it spanned essentially 4 city blocks long, and that's a little bit unusual in terms of the number of residents that it affected. This was built in 1922, and back that time we didn't put a lot of what's called isolation valves, which you would normally have at every intersection, so we basically missed 3 intersections worth of valves in here, and that's why we had over 100 households involved in this. Now, they were not all damaged, but we had to shut the pipe off on 4 city blocks, and that was the number of people that were impacted. What's also unusual is, although that we can cause damage in streets, often with these breaks, we very rarely impact homes in terms of flooding, and certainly not having to displace homes. But in this case, 47 residents had to be displaced. So on the next slide, to give you a little bit of an idea of the timeline. So it began, the leak was reported early in the morning on December 21st. Within essentially a half a day, the leak itself had been fixed. So the hole had been pumped out, a new section of pipe had been brought in. And what was happening as well during those 12 hours is that we're getting notification out to people why their water was off, and the plans to get them water. The 47 residents were being moved between a couple different rec and park centers in the area. We were assisted greatly by rec and park staff, by the Red Cross staff. Our own fleet drivers were shuttling people around here, and internally our Office of Emergency Management was spooling up as well to figure out the long-term solution for these residences. It wasn't until Christmas Eve that we actually were able to get everybody back in the service and be able to drink the water. So by the evening of the first day, the pipe had been fixed, but to be able to provide people water again in their homes, we needed to flush the line out, disinfect the line, and so it wasn't until about 48 hours after that point, on the evening of the 23rd, that people actually now had water, but was issued that along with a boil water notice, meaning that it wasn't safe to drink. And then what's required by the health regulations is that you have to have a second test on your disinfection, and that cleared then on Christmas Eve. The next slide, while there was a lot of activity happening at the site, there was just as much, if not more, action happening here in this building on the 14th floor in 1471, which we, in times of emergency, convert a conference room into what's called our Water Emergency Control Center. And throughout the length of the incident, there was probably around 60 staff working in and out of that facility. And the reason for that, and when we spool up our Water Emergency Center, is when we go past an operational period, so usually past 24 hours, or when there's so much demand for resources outside of these gentlemen's division, and we're coordinating with other agencies within the community and within the city. And then, so that was a 24-hour occurrence happening here in the building. There was always somebody staffed here because we always wanted to have contact as well with the community residents that we were taking care of. And then out at the site was 24/7 in terms of cleanup and repair and providing water. So there was also incident command there. So we had Department of Security Services along with us through the night. So getting to the fix itself on the next slide, there was probably around 60 staff that worked about 3,600 hours to fix the pipe. And I'm glad and pleased to report that we had 0 injuries during this whole activity, which is quite amazing. Every single of our 5 districts supplied either staff or materials to fix the leak. It was in the central district yard that it came out of. And again, it was a significant blowout that occurred there. And those of you that had a chance to go out there, there was literally mud for blocks that just washed out the area. So probably most of the work was not the fixing the pipe itself, but was cleaning up the neighborhood. So other things that were happening, we fixed the pipe. The other part was on-site customer care on the next slide. We provided, obviously, drinking water in the form, few different forms. One is bottled water, and then we had on the lower right there water bladders, which we fill up with potable water so you could get a larger volume of water. And then we had our water cube there, the water trailer on the bottom left, supplying drinking water. And then we also had shower and toilet facilities for sanitation purposes as well. And that you could also, we provided them 5-gallon buckets that you could take for additional sanitation purposes. We had staff there 24/7 going door to door to notify them at every significant stage of what was happening and what was to happen. The next significant part was the displaced customer care. So again, there was 47 residents that needed to be displaced, and through the assistance internally with, again, our own Office of Emergency Management, able to secure those hotels, and then along then with our corporate communications folks and our claim agents within Water and Power, we were able to provide direct care for all of those folks, buying them just essentials because they literally had to get out of their homes. The reason why they were out of their homes is because they were red tagged all the way up to basically Christmas Eve when they could finally go back into the site. So they needed just the basics that you see listed there. The diapers are because we actually had a less than 1 week old baby that was impacted here. It was quite a unique incident there. So you see in the picture there that we had on the Sunday, General Manager Wright was there along with Commissioner McLean-Hill, and then the mayor was there as well to try to make as much lemonade as we could out of a bad situation. So, and then the next slide there, the mayor got quite into the act and entertained the crowd.
Click through
next
the
slide. And there's the mayor taking the mayor's challenge there with this little guy here. So the mayor brought Target gift cards. Jeff, you had a personal story you wanted to share there.
Yes, that's what distracted me.
Okay.
So, yes, I had opportunity to go along with the mayor and representatives from DWP and the fire department to meet with the displaced residents. And after we met with them and we were exiting, one of the ladies, it was an elderly lady, she came up to me afterwards and just expressed her heartfelt appreciation for what we had done. And then she also expressed that this was the first vacation that she had had in a very, very long time, and she was thankful to God for it. So yeah. it was a lemonade out of a lemon.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I told somebody I was looking for the Hallmark Christmas movie moment in here. One of these guys was the Hallmark hot guy that's usually in that. Maybe it's Jeff, I don't know, but you know, we had a baby at Christmas time. We had all the makings of a great movie here. So
Got to meet the baby.
the next slide, we are hugely assisted by our own internal corporate communications. It was providing, obviously, to the public ongoing updates of what was going on, as well as directly to the residents of themselves. So we really can't say enough to everybody that was involved with that. All right, so if one main break within a 2-week period wasn't enough, we challenged ourselves then, next slide, Jeff, with a break just right here in our own neighborhood on Sunset Boulevard at Beaudry, another 24-inch diameter pipe that broke late the night of January 2nd. So we had pre-Christmas break, after New Year's break, again challenging our folks. That again was fixed within by the next afternoon, and it took out all of Beaudry at least one way, and then half of Sunset as well. So both those roads were opened by Friday afternoon. Again, was not a break in the pipe on this one. It was a coupling that failed, a leak, but still enough to cause a blowout. And you can see a little bit of the damage in the series of pictures that follow that. So good and bad news is we know how to respond well to these. That's the good news. The bad news is that they keep happening at a rate that gives us practice in there. And just to reassure you, we are aggressively meeting the goals that we have set out for ourselves to replace these pipelines, and have been increasing that efforts. You know, in 16-17 fiscal years, we replaced 190,000 feet of main line, and that was over our goal of 184,000. And last year we increased that to 215,000, and our goal for this year is 232,000, and by 2021, 266,000. So we've got a percentage of pipe out there that needs to be attended to now, and that's why we're aggressively pursuing that. But sometimes one of them is going to get away from you in a big way. But our leak rate is far below the national average, and we want to improve on that. So just in closing, the last slide is just thank you to all the responders, both within the department, but also outside of the department. And I think the general manager would like to thank somebody in particular, and I think Commissioner McLean-Hill would probably want to add as well, because she was out there as well.
Absolutely. First, just to follow up on the infrastructure replacement comment, the important thing here that Rich brought forward is we prioritize our water mains based on leaks, age, a number of different things. Well, these were older. What you saw was these don't have a history of leaks, so there's no indication that there's going to be a problem. It happened. And the one slide you could see it happened, and it was a huge chunk of the side of the water main just blew off. And there's no way you can predict some of these. They just happen. Whereas others, you've got a history of leaks, and you start saying we've got to replace that. So as part of this, as Rich said, Commissioner McLean-Hill, myself, the mayor went out. It was amazing to watch the mayor entertaining these two absolutely just amazing little boys who were 8 and 9, who were just the best thing. And the picture, you could see the other little boy's feet coming out of his brother, out of his brother's head. It looked like as he was doing a headstand, copying the mayor. And we were there after we left. Commissioner McLean-Hill called the fire department, knowing they had a toy giveaway. And I can't tell you and express the gratitude that staff has for you doing that. I wanted to bring a representative from the fire department. There's Deputy Chief Ronnie Villanueva, just for us to thank the fire department personally. We had so many positive comments. We are so grateful for you coming, so grateful for the commissioner contacting him. I'd like to give the commissioner time to say a few words and truly just express our thanks for the fire department's program and your coming at very short notice for those 47 displaced individuals who went from it was a 5-day-old baby. I mean, we saw that poor mom after 3 days was evacuated. to an elderly woman, but we got them into a hotel, got all of their needs met that we could, and then on top of that, again, it was not a situation anybody wanted to be in, but tried to make it as good as we possibly could, and the fire department was a fantastic partner, as another department in the city of LA, to make it as good as it possibly could be. So I wanted to express my thanks to the department on behalf of staff, because we just couldn't be more grateful for you coming and making that Christmas for those displaced residents as good as it possibly could be in the situation. And I know the commissioner would want to say a few words probably before you respond, but I just can't express how grateful
I'm ready to say something. And before we get started, can I get the picture of the mayor?
Yeah, you absolutely can.
Send that to me, that'd be great.
I think somebody's got video.
I could use that.
I just very, very briefly want to say that one of the rare privileges of being part of the civic infrastructure of the city of Los Angeles is to be in a position to experience the kind of teamwork that was displayed in response to this particular incident. The department was extraordinary, because our president was not available. I did have the opportunity to meet with both the staff and the residents at the hotel and see firsthand the level of care, concern, and responsiveness of this department, and that was really something to behold. And because of a range of relationships, was able to also reach out to the Los Angeles Fire Department and to witness the extraordinary gift that they provided to those families as well. And as David indicated, with 12 hours notice, they showed up and made not just lemonade, but made a very special Christmas for our 20 plus kids, and to see the relief on the faces, and frankly to see parents go from relief to delight was pretty extraordinary. So I too appreciate your efforts, but want to just underscore my complete regard and my pride in being a member of this community and seeing how collectively we take care of each other. So thank you for being here.
Well, I can say something?
You can talk now.
Well, first of all, on behalf of Chief Terrazas and our command staff, I'd like to thank all of you, and to the commissioners, council, and all in the room. Thank you so much for the invitation. 36 years on the fire department. This is the first time I've been to a commission meeting, so shame on me. But thank you so much for all that you've done. And just to highlight just a little bit, if I may briefly, is on the day that I responded to the incident, the collaboration that we had with the DWP workers and with the LAFD was seamless. And that is like when we show up on scene, we want to bring calm to the chaos and not have chaos. And I think that's what we did. And we helped a lot of people just in everything that was going on. So everybody was calm and cool and knew what the objectives were, and that is to provide the best service that we can to the public and to the residents that were there on that day. And I believe, in my heart, that we achieved that. We responded, and we did what we needed to do, as well as what the DWP members also did, and the workers. So a big thank you to all of them, if you could, from behalf of the fire department. But then also, let's go back to the toy giveaway day. That was our Toy Central. And if you could see the smiles, the gratification that we had, and I did a little bit of the MC in there, but Commissioner Cynthia McLean-Hill, she got up there, and quite the spokesperson up there. She did a great job and brought a bunch of huge smiles to all the kids and to their families. And we didn't just have toys for the kids, which tell me if I'm exaggerating, probably about 20 toys for each
Yeah.
kid.
They had a pile at every table by the time they were done.
Overload. So, and I told them Santa had been watching them all year long, and so they obviously were very, very good. And then the parents were sitting there with a little bit of a gloom on their face, but we gave them presents also. So everybody walked out happy. And then me being able to speak with them afterwards, telling just the appreciation that they had, not from the fire department, but actually DWP, for taking care of them. And that was huge. Some of them, I don't think, wanted to go back home. I mean, they were happy. I mean, they were having a good time. And I know I'm making light of it because it was not a good situation, but we made the best of it. And so with that, on behalf of the fire department, if you have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. But a huge, huge thank you from all of us. And thank you for what you do day in and day out, and give that to your whole department. And on behalf of Chief Terrazas, again, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. And again, my last words would send me that picture.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not sure anything more needs to be or can be said. I was thinking it's a good thing I was out of town because I wouldn't have thought of this. And Cynthia really, this was a, to use a trite expression, this is making lemonade out of lemons, but this was taking a really difficult, rough situation, and as Dave put it, making as good as it could have been. And we are extremely grateful to the fire department. And this was, again, quoting Cynthia, the civic family, the city family coming together. I was thinking as I was listening to it, no other utility could have done this. I mean, this is teamwork. This is cooperation. This is what being a city is supposed to be all about. And the fire department deserves all of our gratitude every day, but especially for coming through as you did in the midst of this difficult situation. So on behalf of the DWP, I want to join in thanking you as well.
Thank you.
And just again, thanks to Mr. Lindsay. His crews are the ones that did all the work. Any last word you want to say?
Yeah, just a few people I'd like to thank. It was a huge collaborative effort, as they said, and we had individuals that really just stayed 20 hours at a time to make sure that the people got their water back and that people were in the locations where they needed to be. If I could just call out a few people. First of all, Mr. Jeff Bray. I was actually off that day, and he actually called me and said, you might want to look at the news, you might want to look at TV. And, you know, I had no idea what was going on, and Mr. Bray was the IC, the incident commander, for 95% of the time, and he actually took care of business the whole time. I appreciate him. I appreciate the whole staff. Mr. Alvin Batista was right alongside of him. But there are a few groups in the whole department that I would like to thank. And water quality, we had Serge Haddad and Diane Jones. Water operations, Mr. Steve Cole. Water resources, the WEX group, WETS. Mr. Bill Wagner was there. Our OEM group, they really went over and beyond to make sure that all the displaced had a place to be. Miss Lisa Hayes and Brian Lamb. Could you guys please stand as I call your name? There you go. We also had our fleet managers that made sure that they created some sort of transportation for the folks that were going back and forth from the hotel back to their home to get clothes and items like that. So Mr. Mike McGeechee, Ed Ruiz down in our fleet department, our stores group, can't thank them enough. They made sure that we had shower trailers and porta potties for our individuals. Aaron Lawrence, Mr. Martin Lopez, who really just went over and beyond. And also our security services made sure everything was safe while the people were out there, so they did a great job. Customer service folks, also our communication people here in the building, Mr. Joe Armalo's group and Stephanie Spicer, Ellen Chang. They really, really just made sure that we were communicating effectively with them to make sure that they got the information out. And there were a couple of individuals in water distribution that I really wanted to make sure that we identify. Our emergency response coordinator, Ms. Ophelia Rubio, Ms. Eunice O. Please stand. They're all in the band? Okay. Mr. Lorenzo Campos, who's the district superintendent for Central District.
Why don't you just come over and meet the board?
No, that's good.
Mr. Joe Mundine, Cesar Rubio, who was the IC out there. He really just took care of business. All those good-looking guys work for me.
Yeah,
that was good.
well,
Mr. Marvin Hermosillo, Marvin. Mr. Clemente Valdivinos. All right, and there's a few other folks, but there's too many to name. But these guys really just went over and beyond, and just very, very proud of not only my group but this whole organization. That's all I
All
have.
right, thank you.
All right.
Well, I would say they all deserve a round of applause.
Thank you. One other thing on GM.
That's a tough act to follow.
It is tough. I'm actually going to make some people happier out in the end. You might consider between items 10 and the end of the agenda of taking the items that have no public comment, and the staff can leave and make room for those that want to stay, and they'll have a seat where they could sit.
I welcome that suggestion. We have comment cards on item 22, so that will not be subject to the potential of a consent calendar. But with regard to items 11 through 21, and I think we'll remove 23 from the consent calendar as well. For items 11 through 21, do any commissioners wish to remove any of those items from the consent calendar?
21, please.
21 for Commissioner Noonan. Any others? In that case, is there a motion to approve items 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20?
So moved.
Second, those in favor? Items 11 through 20 are approved, and if any of you are here waiting to hear testimony or provide it on those, you might want to do something else. We also just received an email from Commissioner Barad that she is unable to make it. So I'm going to revert to the initial agenda, and I'm going to reclaim my talking points, and then we will move to public comment. In an effort to enable this commission to delve into some issues at a deeper level, I am announcing that I am forming and in some instances confirming certain advisory committees to look into select areas in greater detail. We also have some pre-existing standing committees for which I would like to reaffirm the appointments previously made to those committees. And finally, later we will be forming 2 new standing committees which require a vote. These are the Owens Valley Tribal Engagement Standing Committee and the Executive Standing Committee. Before I make these appointments, I'm going to make a request of the board secretary. Following the appointments, I would appreciate it if you would please prepare a comprehensive list of the standing committees, advisory committees, and their respective members, and distribute it to all the commissioners, and also please post it on the commission website. With respect to the ad hoc advisory committees, I am forming an ad hoc advisory committee for customer service and community relations, and I am asking this advisory committee to specifically look into ways to improve the website and better utilize social media and increased community output and engagement. I'd like the advisory committee to come back in 12 months or before with a recommendation to the full board on progress and ways we can continue to improve. I would like to appoint Commissioners Vasquez and Barad to this advisory committee if they will accept. Commissioner Barad is not here to be asked. It is my understanding that she will welcome this appointment. I hope that understanding is correct. Commissioner Vasquez, are you okay with joining this committee?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Next, I am forming an ad hoc advisory committee for workforce and employee development, and I am asking this advisory committee to specifically look into additional programs that could be utilized to promote great local training and recruitment and ongoing technical and management training for existing staff. I'd like this advisory committee to come back in 9 months or before with a recommendation to the full board. And I would like to appoint Vice President McLean Hill and Commissioner Vasquez to this advisory committee if they accept. Commissioner Vice President and Commissioner Vasquez.
My honor.
Thank you both very much. And the last advisory committee I'm forming is an ad hoc advisory committee for technology and security that I am asking this advisory committee to look into cyber and physical security. I'd like the advisory committee to come back in 6 months or less with a recommendation on improvements and/or action that could be taken to the full board. And for this advisory committee, I appoint myself, and I'm asking Vice President McLean Hill if she would accept the other position on this committee.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Thank you. With respect to the existing standing committees, I am reaffirming the following appointments. Investment Standing Committee, Commissioner Noonan. Yes?
Yes. Of course.
In your Los Angeles Standing Committee, Commissioner Noonan as chair and Commissioner Vasquez as member. Yes? Thank you. Personnel Relations Standing Committee, Commissioners Noonan and Vasquez. You guys are a team here. Audit Standing Committee, Commissioner Barad has been serving on that, and I anticipate she will continue to. There is one spot still vacant on that committee, if any commissioners are interested. The Retirement Board Representative, Commissioner Vasquez. Thank you. And with respect to the 2 new standing committees, which we'll be voting on later in the meeting, I'm making the following appointments, which will become effective when and if item 23 is passed. For the Owens Valley Tribal Engagement Standing Committee, I would appoint Commissioner Noonan as the chair and Commissioner Vasquez as a member. And finally, for the Executive Standing Committee, which will also take over the functions of the Aventador Contract Committee, I am appointing Vice President McLean Hill and myself. And just to reconfirm that all commissioners are okay with these latter standing committee assignments. I see nods, so I would take that as
Yes.
affirmation. Great. Okay, with that, we will go to public comment. Now, we have, let me find these. I misplaced the note card with all of the.
We have about 20 speakers for item
Okay,
2.
we had about 20 speakers for item 2. We also have 9 speakers for item 22, which is the
Tribal engagement.
tribal engagement policy. So I just want to be clear that any of the 19 or 20 public comments, it's fine for you to speak if you're here for tribal engagement, either in public comment or on 22, but if you are here for 22, I'd like you to choose speaking either under public comment or under tribal engagement, not twice. And also just in general, and particularly in light of the quantity of public comment and other comment speakers we have, historically the commission does not engage back and forth with public comment. We've sometimes slipped into that. And I think today is a good day, given the fact that we have 30 public comments, to remind ourselves that this is for their comment, not for reciprocal engagement. So with that, either Yvette or Barbara, go ahead and call the public comment speakers.
Okay, and please limit your comments to 2 minutes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, this is for item 2. The first public speaker is Madeline Merritt, and after that, Alexander Yasentzis.
Hello, Commission. Thank you so much for hearing public comment today. My name is Madeline Merritt, and I am an organizer with the Sunrise Movement, as well as Public Bank LA. And I'm here to speak to you all today about not funding fracking gas plants for our utility. You know, our city has really strong renewable goals. We have really engaged climate activists, and we do not want DWP to spend upwards of $3 billion to refashion plants to take on natural gas. Many of us in this state do not believe that we should be fracking any longer, and we cannot be building the infrastructure that keeps us dependent on these sources of fuel for the next decades to come, when it's really imperative that we get off of these fossil fuels now. You guys have heard the reports, the UN reports that say that we only have 12 years to make a significant impact on our fossil fuel consumption. So like it or not, Commission, you are a part of history, and you either are going to be on the side of history that sends our planet, our species, off the cliff, or you're going to be a part of history that works together to create the solutions that brings us into the new era where we can build a sustainable society and a sustainable planet. So I appreciate you hearing us. We are here. We're not going away. And it's up to you all to decide how you would like to engage us, whether we can work together to build a better tomorrow, or whether we're going to have to come knock on your door every day until we make sure that these plants are not commissioned. Because we are not going away. We have some of the most engaged activists in the city here in this room today, and we are committed to making sure that DWP does the right thing, because this is our utility. This is the one of the only opportunities we have in the nation to actually make an effect on energy policy. And we all know that the biggest contributors to fossil fuels is our energy production. So I'm calling upon you all to do the right thing and to figure out another solution besides natural gas facilities for our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Alexander Yasantes, and after that, Vicky Kirschenbaum.
Hello, Commission. I'm Alex. I'm from Glendale, still part of LA County. I just wanted to emphasize I'm here with the Sunrise Movement people in solidarity with them. I definitely understand that energy infrastructure is extremely complicated. You know, we're trying to power a city that's using a ton of power, critical infrastructure, people's businesses, people's livelihoods, but I want to emphasize that I think it's the preference of everybody involved to acknowledge the complexity, but to still direct the engineers in DWP to really, and to give them the leeway to look forward at solutions that both, you know, optimize energy use, which reduces the complexity then of procuring the power, because from the time, you know, from the procurement of the gas that we burn to the point of burning it for fuel, there's so much pollution, so much energy wasted that we can really do better. Remember also, when we mine natural gas or we extract it, you know, as far as I've read, there's emissions from that as well of methane, and that's bad for the atmosphere as well. So it's really complicated. Just because natural gas burns cleaner doesn't mean it's a magic bullet. Now, I understand the complexity. I think the city really needs to take a hard look at how energy is being used, to look at where it's being used the most, to optimize use, to incentivize, you know, downscaling if necessary. But it's a very important issue, and I just want to emphasize again that it's not that people don't understand that this is a hard job and that people are going to be held accountable if the city can't be powered. But let me remember this expression, you know, keeping the lights on. You know, we have LEDs now. It's not about keeping the lights on, it's about keeping critical infrastructure open. So that is very important. All right. Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Vicky Kirschenbaum, and after that, Dan Kegel.
Hi, thank you for this opportunity to speak. In 1941, when the American fleet was bombed in Pearl Harbor, our country knew the enemy had arrived at our doorstep. We could not continue business as usual. We mobilized. We fought back, and we won. The enemy today is in every state, in every city in this country. It is in every nation in the world bent on destruction, and that's climate change. We know how to defeat it. Stop burning not only coal, but oil and gas. Stop funding the handful of companies in the world determined to sell us these fuels for their own enormous profits. LADWP must not invest in repowering 3 local gas plants. PG&E is replacing their 3 gas plants with energy storage. LADWP must not invest in repowering the Intermountain Power Project coal plant as a gas plant with a 50-year contract. Southern California Edison is investing in batteries and solar, not gas. Wind, solar, and battery prices are plummeting, and it is unconscionable for this city to invest in long-term gas.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Dan Kegel, and after that, Brian Gomez.
Hi, my name's Dan Kegel. I just want to add some numbers to the discussion. A recent paper by Nature Client Science put the social cost of carbon emissions at between $177 and $800 a ton, with a median of around 400. So when you're evaluating how to update power plants, and you're computing how many, what it's worth to reduce emissions, keep that $400 a ton number in mind. Also, remember that it's very difficult to explain to people why the light rail doesn't go to LAX. Similarly, it's going to be hard to explain to people why we built fossil fuel plants when there was an alternative. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Bryant Gomez, and after that, Victor Veron Flores.
Good morning, Commission. My name is Brian Gomez, and I'm here to express my concerns on LADWP rebuilding 3 gas power plants on the Southern California coast in Playa del Rey, Wilmington, and Long Beach. I am against LADWP's proposal because I am worried about the negative health effects that residents in those communities will face if LADWP rebuilds them. Personally, I live across the street from Alanco's oil drill site located at 814 West 23rd Street in the University Park neighborhood in Los Angeles. And from when Alanco was drilling oil, before they were closed in 2013, I personally experienced nosebleeds, headaches, nausea, and the foul odor smell that was coming out from these toxins that was coming out from the drilling site. And fortunately, my community stood up and they were successfully able to close down the power plant in 2013, and they are still continuing to keep that power plant closed to this day. And from my personal experience, this is why LADWP's proposal is a personal issue for me, because I am concerned that these residents in Wilmington, Playa del Rey, and Long Beach will not only face these negative health effects, but also they can also develop blood disorders, eye irritation, rashes, and liver damage, nervous system damage, and renal system damage. This is basically why I am against the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Victor Verdin Flores, and after that, Monica Campagna.
Hello, my name is Victor Juan Verdin Flores, and I'm here to voice my opposition to LADWP's proposed reconstruction of 3 gas-fired power plants in Southern California, Playa del Rey, Wilmington, and Long Beach. I'm asking Mayor Garcetti to keep to his ambitious goals for renewable energy. I'm calling on LADWP to allocate the $6 billion ratepayer dollars to invest in clean energy technology and green job growth. Reasons LADWP should not reconstruct 3 gas-fired power plants in the Southern California coast are: number 1, LA has the worst air quality in the nation, and the city and its residents are affected by deadly year-round fire seasons, droughts, and toxins released into the environment that make people ill, all of which are direct consequences of our use of fossil fuels. Number 2, the number of fossil fuel jobs remains steady or is declining, while jobs in wind energy are growing by 32% and solar jobs expanding by 25%. Mayor Garcetti can provide opportunities for Angelenos for well-paying long-term and union jobs if he and LADWP do not build these gas-fired power plants in Southern California, but instead invest that $6 billion into 100% renewable energy. Number 3, finally, Mayor Garcetti and or LADWP board members may not live near a gas plant, but the people who do, often low-income communities of color, bear the worst of the pollution. Mayor Garcetti and LADWP must address this legacy of environmental racism and classism and eliminate toxic hotspots in these communities by not rebuilding any gas-fired power plants in Southern California. Finally, I want to say that Mayor Garcetti and LADWP can plant the flag today to stand for a healthier, cleaner environment that will benefit Los Angeles and the world entire by not investing in gas-fired power plants, or they can plant a knife in the heart of the efforts to reverse catastrophic climate change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Monica Campagna, and after that, Daniel Rotman.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity to speak today. I'm here also in support of finding clean energy alternatives to repowering 3 gas plants in your jurisdiction. While I appreciate the desire to diversify your energy sources, we are in a climate emergency, and all the decisions we make now must be considered within this framework, within this truth. If cost is the primary decision-making factor here, I implore you to consider the environmental and health costs in gas repowering in your equation. These are real costs. I also hope you will consider the fact that the utility scale battery storage pricing is dropping every day, and the cost even now is becoming competitive with building new gas infrastructure. General Manager David Wright indicated to the board that the city has 5 additional years before it needs to replace the generation of the Harbor and Haynes plants, and prudently indicated the utility would revisit plans to rebuild the plants if solar and battery costs continue to fall. There is absolutely no reason to think that they will not continue to fall. I hope you will focus now on building new transmission and investing in battery storage that's quickly becoming more affordable than building new gas infrastructure. If time is the consideration, time to build transmission, it seems much more prudent to push for a few more years extension to build new transmission rather than investing billions in a gas infrastructure that will, according to data from the Rocky Mountain Institute, become stranded assets in just 10 to 20 years from now. They will become economically obsolete. Lastly, all of our other cities nearby, Glendale, Burbank, Pasadena, and I think the rest of our country, because LA is such a big city, an important city, you all here are a beacon to the rest of our country, and we really need your leadership on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Daniel Brotman, and after that, John Pelzen.
Hi, my name is Dan Brotman. I'm a co-founder of the Glendale Environmental Coalition, and we face similar issues with the repowering of the Grayson plant that's just along the LA River on the other side of the LA Zoo. And we've been pushing hard for Glendale to look at alternatives, which they are doing. And I appreciate what LADWP has already done and is continuing to do to move the needle. It's obviously a very difficult issue. I was intrigued by this article that I read by Sammy Roth on December 20th in the LA Times. I'm sure you saw it. And I wrote a letter to the editor, which was published a few days later. And essentially what intrigued me by the article is that it made this point, quoting DWP management and the consultants, that the physical reality of the power grid makes it impossible to avoid investing billions in fossil fuels, and it goes on to talk about all the transmission constraints. But at the end of the article, as the last speaker mentioned, General Manager David Wright said that the utility would revisit this conclusion if prices of solar and batteries fall further. So it suggested to me that this is not entirely a physics issue, it's as much an economics issue, perhaps a little bit of both. But to the extent that there is a financial element to the decision of whether to repower Scattergood or any of the others, I would ask that Department of Water and Power consider not just the visible costs, but the social costs, as one of the other speakers also mentioned, or the externalities of fossil fuels in any analysis that it does. And I imagine that this would fundamentally change the conclusions if a realistic social cost of carbon was brought into the analysis. The climate crisis is just too pressing and too existential for a business as usual approach. It's hard to imagine how we can put a value on the future viability of our species. Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is John Pelzen, and after that, Tom Pike.
Good morning, Commissioners, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm John Pelzer, and I'm a 35-year resident of Los Angeles. I'm here today because I'd like my daughters to have that same option. We have a time-honored, unfortunate tradition in this country. The more important an issue is, the more likely we are to kick that can down the road. Today, we have an historic opportunity to deal with that can here and now. Today, we have an opportunity to turn away from fossil fuels here in Los Angeles. But it will take leadership, and that's what we're calling on Mayor Garcetti to provide. It is that simple. It is that important. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Tom Pike, and after that, John Idit. I'm sorry, Jack.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. We have a dozen lakes and dams in Los Angeles County that could be used for pumped water storage without burning gas or even mining lithium. I know that DWP is considering doing this with the Hoover Dam, and I want to voice my support for that plan. The IPCC report says we have to reach a peak in carbon emissions this year, less than 12 months, in order to reach 1.5 degrees Celsius. According to the IPCC report, even 1.5 degrees Celsius would be disastrous for humanity, resulting in millions of deaths and displacements. And the IPCC report is actually too optimistic. So please understand, I do not mean it as a personal slight when I read my conclusion based on the scientific consensus that restarting these plants is ethically indistinguishable from murder. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Jack Idit, and after that, Karen Ness.
Hello, good morning. My name is Jack Eit, and I'm co-founder of SoCal 350 Climate Action. I'm also an urban planner. And I think a lot of people have already made similar points about funding $6 billion towards aging gas plants. We really have to understand that we are we're using this dirty gas, and we're poisoning the people who live around these gas plants. We are taking their lives and making them pay. They have to pay for our cheap gas. Also, we're externalizing the climate impacts of continuing to use fracked natural gas, which leaks at all levels of the supply chain, from where it's drilled, where it industrializes landscapes, where it leaks from pipelines, from the wells themselves. We saw what happened in Porter Ranch. We need to learn these lessons. And so all of these costs, when you figure out, we've talked about externalizing the costs, we're also looking at a clean energy revolution that is happening, and with today's technology. Admittedly, battery storage is expensive for now, and so making that decision right now to invest that money, as well as transmission lines, it is expensive. But we have to consider what is really expensive when we have entire neighborhoods that are now ready to burn, and neighborhoods that have been suffering from our addiction to fossil fuels forever. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Karen Ness, and after that, Rhonda Plank-Richard.
Hi, my name is Karen Ness, and I want to point out something really awesome. We started this meeting talking about how so many different departments and people and agencies came together to deal with the crisis of the water main break. There were so many people that were probably not even listed that helped out in helping us meet that crisis. That was a crisis that was dealt with beautifully. And I'm challenging you guys and various agencies to use that same energy, enthusiasm, ingenuity to meet the climate crisis. It is a slow-moving but very visceral crisis. So I'm here to oppose the repowering of the 3 gas power plants. I oppose this for the climate change issues, for health of local communities, for the environmental impact, for fiscal impact, as well as for our legal obligations. So please, once again, rise to the occasion. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Rhonda Plank-Richard, and after that, Judy Sonoyam.
Hi, I live in Woodland Hills. I'm a parent, I'm a teacher, and I say amen to everything I've heard already. And what I'm trying to cross out all the things that have already been said to not belabor points that have been made so eloquently over and over again. So a couple of things I'm left with is an incredible sense of urgency. This is no longer an abstraction. I teach in West Hills. We've been out for smoke days last year. This year, we have fires coming where we can see them a few blocks away on our balconies with helicopters dropping flame retardant on them. We get calls in the middle of the night to evacuate. I didn't have to, but we know people whose homes burned. This is very real. It is no longer an abstraction. And if anything, everything I read, and I try to read everything I can when I'm not being a teacher, a 4th grade teacher, says the scientists are too conservative. We all thought this was farther off. This weather has shocked us. Every day there's another incredible disaster. Perhaps our pipes are breaking because now we have floods, right? 50 million trees fell down, were toppled in Puerto Rico, so they have urban flooding every time it rains. So to me, it's urgency. I want to read something. I work with Sunrise, I work with 350 LA, Food and Water Watch, and this is by one of our co-founders, Bill McKibben. He said, on our current trajectories, all the solar panels and windmills we're planning to build will light up a busted planet. The decisions we make in 2025 even will matter much less than the ones we make in the next few years. We can't just keep the current business model year in year and hope that things will get better. So it's not even 12 years. Like, I ordered a t-shirt that isn't here yet that says 12 years. We're talking about 2 years, right? To turn this gigantic, horrible, massive ship that we've built on fossil fuels somehow. And so to me, I go to all these meetings, I make these calls, I do all this stuff, I just don't hear the urgency, right? You are my utility. And this is the other thing. So many people wanted to come to this event. It's at 10 o'clock in the morning, right? We can't come. This process, how we're gonna generate our energy, is like the most important decision any of us are gonna make forever, right now. You have got to open these meetings up to the public. We can't come in when you have the public comment or the public educational period. After this, we're on a trajectory, right? You're only considering 2 cases out of 12 that really even consider the possibility of all renewables. Do you really feel like that is due diligence for our children? I've taught over 500 children now. I look at them every day. What is going on? Nothing's normal, right? I just don't feel like they're in the room. I feel like for transparency, which we have got to have in this really difficult process of making this transition, which every one of us has to make difficult decisions. Do I fly? Do I drive? Every time I get in my car, I drive a
Could you wrap your remarks up, please?
I'm guilt wrapped, right? Okay? But we have got to lead on this for our children. And let's see if I had any other thing. Mayor Garcetti, in absentia, the climate mayor, right? I believe his heart's in the right place, but why? Where is he on leadership in this issue? And also, we're going to fight this and fight this and fight this. We're going to be here. We're going to see you every time. It couldn't matter more. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Judy Sonoyam.
Thank you. I'm Judy Sonoy, and I'm also a LAUSD teacher. There have been such amazing speakers, and they've made all the big points. I just want to appeal to you when we study history, we look back and we go, wow, this catastrophe, it could have been averted. What were people thinking? And you are in the position now to make this important decision. I'm just reading that these $6 billion will go toward plants that will link us with fossil fuels for 20 to 40 years in the future. And as she's saying, we don't even have 12 years. So I know it's sort of a new, difficult era we're entering. There's probably going to be problems going to these new renewable fuel sources, but we're imploring you to think of the future and think of the part you are playing, the important decision you're making. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Jay Garantz, and after that, Mark Floor.
Hi. Hi, good morning. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm going to echo what everybody ahead of me have said. I'm urging Mayor Garcetti, LA DWP, and other stakeholders, that means you guys, other civic political leaders, other businesses, and other citizens, to act now. Let's end the investment on gas-powered plants. This has been the calling cry for decades, but the time is up in many ways. Has the UN's October announcement that we only have 12 years or maybe less before our planet becomes unlivable not alarm any of you into action yet? 12 years. I don't, and like a lot of people said, maybe less. I don't know about you, but I want to see my family. I want to see other families enjoy more New Year's, birthdays, graduations. And I can see all of you. I heard what you guys congratulated each other on, patting each other on the back. Like, you guys do good work. And I know that you do help the public. You, like me, want to enjoy more celebrations in life for years to come. And that's why I urge you to stay on the path of researching more and investing in renewable energy versus this investment on gas-powered plants. Renewable energy is a financially lucrative business, and the time to invest in them is now and not later. Thank you.
The next speaker is Mark Floor, and after that, Alexandra Nag.
Hi, my name is Marco Flores. I'm a member of AIM SoCal and the Sunrise Movement. I'm calling on Garcetti and the LADWP to reject investing more taxpayer dollars in the gas plants and fossil fuels. Los Angeles already has the worst air quality in the nation, and we need to invest in a 100% renewable future. We can no longer afford to continue to pollute our earth. Please do the right thing and do not approve the investments in rebuilding the 3 gas plants in Playa del Rey, Wilmington, and Long Beach. Thank you.
The next speaker is Alexandra Nag, and after that, Walker Foley.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Alex Nagy. I'm the Senior Organizer with Food and Water Watch. I wanted to thank everyone who's spoken so far. I'm so proud to stand in this room with so many incredible activists, so well-spoken, so passionate. I grew up in Los Angeles, and when I started at Food and Water Watch, I started working on the fracking and oil and gas issue. And then I started working on Aliso Canyon when it blew out in my neighborhood, and watched my family and my community suffer through that crisis. I still have horrible asthma from that incident. My friends are still very sick. We're starting to see communities, teachers die from cancer, children developing rare forms of blood cancer from the benzene from that gas. And so we understand, we know what the consequences are. And luckily, I really do believe, and I hope that this city wants to move to 100% renewable energy. I know that. We are in these stakeholder meetings. We're expecting that report to come out mid-next year. And what I'm really calling for is, we have this vision, but we need the leadership. And I understand that scattergood is first on the chopping block to repower these gas plants. And the time limits that we have to do this are very constraining. The space limits we have are constraining. But I really do believe that if we had that leadership, especially from our mayor, Eric Garcetti, to lead us to stop repowering this gas plant first, I know the rest will follow. I believe in that. And if it won't, you know, like you've heard, we will continue to show up. We will continue to organize. We will continue to advocate for the future we absolutely need and deserve. And I know you can deliver that for us. So thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Walker Foley, and after that, Lorraine Lindquist.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Walker Foley. I'm an organizer with Food and Water Watch. I come to this work after the fracking industry harassed my family's farm in Appalachia, and I've spent the last 3 years of my career working with folks in the Aliso Canyon area and around urban oil fields across Los Angeles that are facing some of the very same harassment that my family faced on a day-to-day basis from these industries. My organization recently commissioned a study by Synapse Energy Economics, which shows that we, Los Angeles, LADWP, can get to 100% clean energy for relatively the same amount of money that we are talking about investing in these gas plants. And the way I see it, you all and Mayor Eric Garcetti have a choice here. We could spend $6 billion now and lock our city into 20 to 40 years of dirty gas, or we could invest that money into this rapid, front-loaded transition to clean energy. I know it's not without its challenges, but the city claims that it wants to align with the Paris goals. The recent IPCC report states plainly that we have 12 years to make serious commitments to this timeline in this future. And the state of California, year after year, seems to set newer and ambitious clean energy and emissions reductions goals, but no plan to date, including the DWP or the state of California, really rises to the level of action that we're seeing as this global catastrophe starts to unfold and becomes closer and closer to our communities and our shores. This is a choke point for LA's future, and we're asking that you take this choke point with the amount of grave consideration that it needs and don't approve the rebuilding of these gas-fired plants. Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Lorraine Lindquist, and after that, Jane Patel.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Dr. Lorraine Lundquist. I'm a faculty associate at the Institute for Sustainability at Cal State University. I'm a Northridge East Neighborhood Council board member. The Northridge East Neighborhood Council has actually endorsed asking LADWP to move to 100% renewable energy by 2030. And now I'm a candidate for LA City Council District 12 in the Northwest San Fernando Valley. I am coming here today to talk to you about the possible repowering of our coastal natural gas plants. At a presentation at a recent Board of Commissioners meeting, you were presented the results of the once-through cooling study, looking at different alternatives for what to do to generate the energy that is needed from these gas plants. One important thing that study showed is that it is absolutely possible to choose alternative energies. We do not need to repower these plants. We have other options. I want you to consider especially case 12, which looks at repowering all of those, instead of repowering all of those gas plants, to consider other options. But most importantly, I want you to look at the first one that's on the docket, which is Scattergood, scheduled to be repowered the earliest. If we look at this one, if you look at case 2 looks at avoiding repowering Scattergood and instead using alternative energy to generate the energy that we need. This case does require some transmission, but it's really important for us to get ahead of the curve on these issues, because I think you all know that as the reality of the climate crisis becomes more and more present to the people of the United States and to the people of California and of Los Angeles, we are all going to realize that we do not need gas anymore, and we are going to shift over into clean energy. So let's not invest our money in these plants that are going to be a scourge on our future. Let's invest in the clean energy solutions we know we need to head towards right now.
Okay, the next speaker is Jane Patel, and after that, Ronnie Solman.
Good morning. Thank you, Commissioners, for this opportunity to speak to you. Last April, USA Today published a report from the American Lung Association stating about 133 million Americans More than 4 of 10 live with unhealthful levels of air pollution, placing them at risk for premature death and other serious health effects such as lung cancer, asthma attacks, cardiovascular damage, and developmental and reproductive harm. And the Los Angeles Long Beach area took the dubious distinction of being the nation's most ozone polluted city, and has for nearly the entire 19-year history of the report. Of the 10 most polluted cities, 7 cities did worse in this year's report, including Los Angeles. But we all know the long-term implications of fossil fuel emissions on the world. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, a group of scientists convened by the United Nations, issued a warning of the world leaders that we have 12 years before devastating climate change is irreversible. However, here are the statistics from medical reports about how health impacts of fossil fuel emissions immediately affect the populace of LA County. From Health Affairs, children exposed to air pollution perform worse on cognitive functioning tests and have impaired neurological function and lower IQ scores compared with other children. Also, children exposed to high levels of nitrogen dioxide, a common air pollutant generated by the burning of fossil fuels, have been found to have decreases of 6.71, 7.37, and 8.61 points of quantitative working memory and gross motor areas, respectively. Similarly, children with high levels of exposure to nitrogen dioxide and particles 10 micrometers or less in the air performed significantly worse on neurobehavioral tests. From the American Journal of Nursing, a study of 1,800 fourth graders in Southern California over 8 years determined that exposure to increased levels of air pollution from fossil fuel especially is linked to reduced lung development. From biological psychiatry, exposure to fine particles during fetal life was related to child brain structural alterations of the cerebral cortex, and these alterations partially mediated the association between exposure to fine particles during fetal life and impaired child inhibitory control. Such cognitive impairment at early ages have significant long-term consequences in salary achievement, overall health care costs, and life expectancy. And finally, from the environmental health perspectives, air pollution exposures are associated with increased risks of respiratory and cardiovascular diseases, and possibly our central nervous system diseases and pregnancy complications. SO2 and NOx are known triggers for asthma attacks and increased risk for lung and heart disease.
Could you wrap up your remarks, please?
I'm sorry?
Could you wrap up your remarks? Your time
Yes.
is up.
I'm sorry. And finally, one last. From USC News, scientists and engineers found that older women who live in places with fine particulate matter exceeding the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's standard, which we do, are 81% more at risk for global cognitive decline and 92% more likely to develop dementia, including Alzheimer's. If you're interested in copies of any of these reports, as well as many others that I have, I'm happy to provide them to you. Thank you so much.
Okay, the next speaker is Ronnie Salmon.
Good morning. Thank you for the time. I really can't add to what everybody said. I agree wholeheartedly. I'll just share that a couple of months ago, a month and a half ago, my daughter-in-law's parents had to flee Paradise, with flames, and there's been living now in a hotel room with their dogs. My other child is grown, and he's getting married in May, and they plan to have children. And I was a pre-K teacher for all my teaching career, and I look at the future, and it looks very scary, and it's in your hands. Do the right thing. Thank you.
That was our last speaker for item 2.
Thank you all.
Can I, excuse me, Chair.
Let me just ask, Council, do you have
brief
any?
comment is appropriate, but it's not an agendized item, so we can't have a big discussion.
This is my comment, and it's not around discussion. Thank you. So I hear the urgency. Thank you all for coming. Regarding the engagement around like the hours where we have our meetings and such. I would like to instruct staff to make sure that the folks that are here are participating on the process, specifically in the public comment period happening in March and in April, that there's a way for the public to know, whether it's in our website or through a newsletter or such. I'm not sure how we're communicating with the public when we make these decisions and when the public comment period happens. But also, I want to instruct that these meetings are held at a time where it's reasonable for community members to attend. So maybe 10 in the morning, I hear, might not be the best time for folks if we want a strong community engagement and participation. I would like to also utilize the equity metrics in the way that we outreach to folks. I see a lot of new faces, and I want to thank you for coming, and it's exciting to see you engage. And I can definitely sense a big spirit of collaboration, and definitely at DWP we want to welcome that. And we have to make sure that the folks that are here have the opportunity to participate in the process, and also other folks that maybe can be here have the opportunity to participate in the process. So, Mr. General Manager, if we can make sure that during this hearing period or public comment period, folks have a way to communicate. I know that there is an email that we have where people that cannot attend even any emails because maybe they have a disability or maybe they just can't, they can also address the board. So I would like a place in our website or for the public to know how they can engage in this process and learn and participate and be a partner to DWP throughout this moment where we're deciding such important things for our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, General Manager, do you have additional comments? No. Comments from commissioners on agendized items and requests from commissioners relating to departmental operations. We just heard one. Any other commissioner comments?
I just want to step back a second and to echo Commissioner Vasquez's comments relative to the public engagement in this process. I too am always happy to hear from and want to encourage as much interaction from the public as possible, and just want to acknowledge the presence of the people who showed up this morning, not just for being here, but also for the time and energy that you are devoting to engaging on these important issues. So thank you for being here. Oh, in terms of commission operations issues, just one question, and that is to our general counsel regarding Brown Act training. I'm curious as to, I know that we've discussed the my interest in having a sort of an actual training document developed for Brown Act for senior staff, and I'm curious as to where we might be with that and when that might be forthcoming.
I actually have a document prepared for that, and we'll be doing a training probably in February for the entire, I shouldn't say the entire staff, for certain levels of staff at A that have regular interaction with the board. So that should happen probably the second or third week of February.
Second or third week of February? Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Other commissioner comments? Ratepayer advocate.
We may have some comments on presentations in item 8.
Okay. Barbara, discussion with neighborhood council representatives on any neighborhood council resolution or community impact statement filed with the city clerk which relate to any agenda item listed or being considered on this agenda for the Water and Power Board.
No community impact statements or formal positions were filed by any neighborhood councils on the items on today's agenda.
Okay, we have 2 management presentations, and they will be the next 2 items. 8A, power transmission and distribution system.
We can do those if you might want to hear item 22 before, because I know there's also guests from a long way away who are here to hear that.
Why don't we do
item.
that? Hearing no objection. Good. So we'll move to item 22. And we have 9, or at least an hour ago, we had 9 public comment cards on item 22. Why don't we begin with the public comment on item 22, and then we'll have the presentation.
Okay. The first speaker for item 22 is Alicia Lee, and after that, Samantha Cyprit.
Good morning, and thank you for letting me be here today. My name's Elisa Lee. I'm the Vice Chair of the Fort Independence Indian Reservation in Owens Valley. As an elected official, I represent the viewpoints of our tribe, and I take that position very seriously. And I came here today specifically to talk to you about how important it is that we move forward with DWP with this consultation policy. It's something that we've pondered about, we've thought about, and really, we do have a troubled past, don't we? But we want to move forward. And one of the reasons that we want to move forward is because we know that that's best for our community. I myself am the product of a mother who was raised by her father, who worked for 40 years for DWP as a heavy equipment operator. Through his work, he was able to send my mother and my aunt to college, the first ones to leave the reservation. I benefited from their education, and being raised by a school teacher, I went to law school. I also graduated from UCLA with a master's in American Indian Studies. Education is very important to us. How do we get our community to improve? That's what we're working on right now, is ways to bring more industry and infrastructure to our community so that we can help our tribal members. And there are some barriers that we've faced, barriers of power and water and things that we've talked about over the years, and we haven't seen a lot of growth in those areas. But we're happy to see this consultation policy being developed up to this point because we think it's a positive step forward. There's a lot of things that we can do as partners and a lot of things that will directly impact our tribal members, and so that's why I'm here today. I understand that there is some controversy regarding this tribal consultation policy, and that's with everything, right? But I do feel like this is a first step forward. And I want to reiterate that I am an elected representative of my tribe. Okay, so I represent the Fort Independence tribe. And nobody else can represent our position but me or our elected officials. And I want to make that point because everyone has the opportunity to give their opinions. But I want to stress that we are a government and we're sovereign. And we want to work with you on a government-to-government relationship. And we have a lot of positive relationships that we've developed throughout the years with DWP employees, and we're grateful for that. But there's work ahead of us, and there's things that we have to do. And this tribal consultation policy is an indication to us that you are ready to move forward. And it's also an indication for you to know that we, Fort Independence Reservation, are ready to move forward. And we want to see growth, and we're going to see it. We've done a lot of wonderful things for our community. And I take this elected position very seriously. A few weeks ago, I had a tribal elder come up to me and thank me for the work that we were doing. And he said, Elisa, I was able to go buy a washer and dryer and buy the best one. I've never been able to do that. You know, that makes me proud. That makes me proud of the work that we're doing. And we want to move forward. But there are economic barriers, like I said, to power and water and things that we need to work out that are going to take working together individually, not as a tribal Owens Valley basis, but individually with the Fort Independence tribe. And so that's what we're hoping to do, and that's why one of our recommendations to the tribal consultation policy was that we develop an agreement with DWP directly with our tribe. And I know that there's often the feeling that all tribes are kind of have the same opinion or might have the same perspective on things. And I want to really reiterate that we're a separate sovereign government. We have separate water issues, separate land issues, separate culture, even our language. We have different dialect, even though that we're all Paiute. So I want you to keep that in mind and know that we are committed to moving forward, and we have a lot of pressure to do that because we have a lot of things that we want to accomplish for our community. But we need your help, and we want to partner with you, and we hope that this is not a process that gets drawn out any longer, because I think the tenets of a good agreement are already there in place, and we can move to improve. There's two things that we would ask from you, and that's transparency and respect. And I think that this policy outlines those very things. And so I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to have the time out of your busy schedule to address this issue, and also know that we're busy as well, but we're here because of the importance that this has for our community. So I thank you for being able to be here today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Okay, the next speaker is Samantha Seipert, and after that, Kathy Bancroft.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Samantha Seipert. I'm here on behalf of the Native American Heritage Commission. Respectfully, I would like to request if I could move my comments to the end. I think that it is most important that you hear from the tribal leadership that's not only here in the room, but also attending at in the Bishop location. They are the experts of their own land, and I would think that it would be most important for you to hear from them first, and then I'd be more than happy to share the comments on behalf of the Commission.
That's fine.
Is that okay? Thank you.
Then our next speaker will be Kathy Bancroft, and after that, Charlotte Lang.
Manahu. Inanine Kathy Jefferson Bancroft, Paiahunadu, Wa'enu Kumadu. As Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Lone Pine Paiute Shoshone Reservation, I've worked with DWP for many years, many times on a daily basis. Sometimes I talk to people who only want to tell me what DWP is going to do. Other times I get to talk with people who want to listen and work out a real solution. I much prefer the second person to have a conversation with. The tribal engagement policy is much the same as that first person. You were forced to write a policy that illustrates the way you're going to engage with the tribes, and you're telling the tribes what it's going to say. You're not even engaging with us to come up with a better policy. These documents contain several things that are only partly true or sometimes completely wrong. Then it goes on to describe a lot of nice flowery thoughts and actions. And how can I believe the good parts if the parts I know about are based on untruth? You started this endeavor a year and a half ago. We had like 2 weeks to submit our comments to it. And I just received a copy of the full documents, supporting documents, and the full documents. And the changes yesterday was when I finally got the complete documents. I'm not sure what the mix-up was. I don't see much change from the first draft. There's still a lot of things that we have questions about. We have no chance to ask those questions. We don't see any definite description of actions. We see numerous undefined terms and vague terms that only seem like loopholes to us. Words like pursue, emphasize, or strive only allow them to check the box instead of reaching the beneficial solution. It seems as though the tribes are all basically suggesting the same changes and goals, but they're not being addressed in this document. The Timbisha Shoshone were completely left out. The document talks about the cost to LADWP. These costs are nothing compared to some of the waste I've seen on the Owens Lake Dust Mitigation Project. In fact, the people on the ground out on the lake have learned that addressing tribal concerns can even save money at times. When we work as a team, we can save time and money, and I'll be more satisfied with the product. A wise man on the project once said, "We can finish early and under budget, but if we've pissed off everybody in the meantime, we really didn't accomplish anything." Manley's a really nice guy and very knowledgeable, but what does he know about my tribe? You may as well have gotten an indigenous person from Australia if you think that he can speak for us. No offense to Manley, but the Navajo people were traditional enemies of my people. My uncles went to the mining towns south of us just to kill Navajos because they were getting too close to our country. My point is If you want to know about us and what our concerns and needs are, then come talk to us. If you want a usable policy, all we're suggesting is to work with us on getting one. Write one that says something valuable, write one that addresses the overarching concerns of everybody. You may pass this, what's that say? You may pass this the way it's written, but you'll only have another document that that none of the tribes have agreed to. It'll mean nothing in itself, but it means the world to us because it could be yet another hollow effort by a powerful entity and more deception in order to continue with non-transparent and underhanded means to achieve their goals. So all I'm asking is to take the time to build that trust and make a meaningful document. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next speaker is Charlotte Lang, and after that, Alan Baycock.
Thank you for the opportunity, Commissioners. Inanane Charlotte Lang. This morning I woke up at 2 a.m. and drove over 300 miles to attend this meeting today. So I'm stressing how important it is to my native community. I am the chairperson of the Mono Lake Quizitica tribe. We are the Quizitica people of the Mono Lake and Yosemite region. Our identity surrounds our environment, our land, and our water. We get our name from the cassava, our traditional food source found only at Mono Lake. Our lives have changed dramatically since DWP's presence in our homeland. Every time DWP diverts water, cuts off irrigation, and pumps groundwater, our identity as Native people and our future generations are at risk of extinction. But this doesn't just affect us. The surrounding non-Native communities and livelihood of our habitats affect us and also are at risk. Our creation stories tell us that we were created in our homeland, what was always a beautiful, lush, green environment. In the past and today, my community faces many issues regarding the water and land policies of DWP. If these are not changed, our voices are not heard. You continue to put our lives, culture, communities, and everything we know about our people in grave danger. Think of our grandchildren, great-great-great-grandchildren. Your relatives have people who come to our communities. Nobody is going to win from the living to the land to the sky. I urge you, LADWP commissioners, to unite our communities and our voice. If we must continue this relationship through water and land, DWP should appoint a tribal representative from our representative for our region to sit on the board. If not, the least you can do is implement true government-to-government consultation. This includes the ability of the tribes to assist in developing policies from the beginning thought process and moving forward. This is not a current policy. Rather, you are pushing this through in a rush and creating more distrust. I oppose to this current draft of the tribal engagement policy as it does not reflect true collaboration or consultation. I would like one more opportunity to talk about the Long Valley Ranch leases in Mono County and the shutoff of the irrigation water. I am concerned that the most recent decisions by DWP to cut off irrigation to local ranches in Mono County will negatively impact the habitat, cultural resources, bird migration, and Indian allotment lands that are scattered throughout the terrain. Mono County is bordering, our tribal leases are bordering the long-term ranch leases. We all know that the water systems on our earth are all connected. We at Mono Lake are at the headwaters of the water system flowing off of the eastern Sierra Mountains. The snow atop our mountains, the water in our streams and rivers, the moisture in the air we breathe, and the water that collect in our groundwater are all connected. Your decisions impact the water supply of our tribal lands and aquifers and habitat for our traditional foods and medicines. And I need to speak for these people because they don't have a voice as far as plants, animals, the skies, so forth. I do not want Mono Lake to turn out like Patsiata, the original name of Owens Lake, which today sits dry and deserted, causing all of our relatives in the Owens Valley many health issues and related issues. I am here to protect my people and to protect Mother Earth. I urge the commissioners to rethink their decisions and outdated policies on dealing with water extraction, shut-off, and diversion. For these reasons, I oppose my decisions made to shut off existing irrigation practices in Mono County, as well as this policy. Bonitawa. Thank you for your time.
Okay, the next speaker is Alan Baycock, and after that, Anna Hoag.
Anahu, my name is Alan Baycock from the Big Pine Tribe, and yesterday the chairperson of the Big Pine Paiute Tribe of the Owens Valley sent comments to the board for your consideration. I hope you're able to receive them and consider them as you're looking at the adoption of this engagement policy. The tribe does recognize that the adoption of this policy is not binding on the tribe, but would like to see the policy be as good as possible for strengthening our relations together. The policy was created as a lease requirement from California State Lands Commission, but it does not meet the goals of the lease requirement since it's not dealing with the means to actually conduct tribal consultation. This policy instead has created a two-pronged approach to interact with tribes by providing general concepts for engagement between the commission and tribal councils while leaving tribal consultation to staff, which has been against the wishes of the Big Pine Tribe and with that, has consistently shared that tribal consultation should be conducted between the ultimate decision makers of the actions. For the tribe, the tribal council is that entity, and for DWP is the commissioners, which approve the environmental documents. Anything less than that is not considered consultation by the tribe. This policy has a lot of good words and a lot of good intentions, but fails to recognize that trust has not been built yet. Therefore, when separation of duties for decision makers and staff through this policy is discussed, which has been against the will of the tribe since the beginning of discussions, it does not help to establish trust with the tribe. I have to share that in hearing from the vice chair of the Independence Tribe that we are in full agreement that elected officials of tribes are the ones that speak on behalf of those tribes. And so being able to have tribal consultation in the midst of the tribal council or members of the tribal council and commissioners of LADWP, it makes sense. And I know that absent of that provision within this policy does not help us in being able to move forward in a manner that helps to really build trust, build respect with each other in the things that we're wanting and desiring to do for the future and for our future relations. Because I know we all do want to be able to have stronger relations together into the future. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Anna Hoag, and after that, Paul Hewitt.
Good morning, commissioners, tribal leaders, and community members in attendance. My name is Anna Hoag. I am staff attorney at California Indian Legal Services, one of the longest-running nonprofit law firms advocating to advance Native American rights, foster tribal self-determination, and facilitate tribal nation building. Throughout our history, we have served essentially every tribe within the boundaries of what is now California at one time or another, and we're proud to serve many tribal nations in the Owens Valley and Eastern Sierra region. We are all too aware of the role that DWP has played in shaping the modern Owens Valley area and surrounding regions. It is because of this history and its impact on the local tribes here that there has always been a sense of mistrust between DWP and the tribal communities. If you are a commissioner today but are not aware of this history, there are many people, including myself, who are more than happy to help educate you. United Nations International Human Rights Principles recognize that Indigenous people are the stewards of natural resources and guardians of biodiversity, and that their right to development is a basic human rights-based principle. However, a widespread lack of respect of their cultures and rights has resulted in many communities being decimated, dispossessed of their lands, and forcibly relocated throughout the world. To that end, it is internationally recognized that free, prior, and informed consent is a prerequisite for any activity that affects their ancestral lands, territories, and resources. These principles are what Los Angeles and DWP, as proclaimed progressive leaders in climate and water policy, should be striving for. A tribal engagement policy and the need to consult with the tribes in the region is long overdue. However, true consultation requires sincere and open communication and participation from the onset. Because that is not the case here with the current tribal engagement policy, and because there are still many tribes that have concerns with the current policy, we recommend that the commissioners take the tribe's concerns seriously and take a pause. We urge the commissioners to request a time extension from the State Lands Commission in order to develop a policy that is based truly on inclusion, respect, and furtherance of relationship building with the tribes in the region. Thank you.
The next speaker is Paul Hewitt, and after that, Angela Eddy.
Manahu. So I'm here to say that I would ask you to hold off, commissioners to hold off on approving this tribal engagement policy and actually do like a pilot project, maybe send two appointed commissioners that you probably do on the next agenda item or whenever it comes up, to come up and to visit the tribes and try it out first before maybe you go ahead and submit something that's going to be a document that you're going to be living by or whatever. So I guess we'll probably need all kinds of, I'm an old, fashioned believer, handshakes and stuff, but I guess that doesn't work in this new day of age. So yeah, also I too, I think it's real important that you do try that. I think that you should send the commissioners that are going to be appointed. I think that they should meet up with the council and talk about their feelings towards this tribal engagement policy. I agree with Kathy on like maybe look into having we have doctors and lawyers up here that are tribal members as well. You don't have to go all the way to Arizona to find one that actually maybe that would be more knowing of this area as well, that could help out. And then obviously Anna offered her expertise and knowledge in the areas up here. So I think it would be definitely beneficial to hold off on approving this until maybe you could do a pilot project instead of just jumping right into it, because there is some concerns that we do have, and I know your staff's working diligently, really hard on getting this done, but definitely think that you should do a pilot. So thank you.
The next speaker is Angela Eddy, and after that, Danielle Gutierrez.
Manahu, Ananane, Angela Eddy, Anumanu, Mono Lake. I'm Angela Eddy from Mono Lake Gazitica tribe. I am the vice chair, and as my chairman, Charlotte Lang, spoke, I agree upon everything she had said. I am a resident of Owens Valley, have been for 50 years, born and raised. I too oppose and would like you guys to really look at this policy you guys are writing up and consultate with all the tribal leaders. Like Paul said, we are educated. Most of us that have been elected in are educated. We do have lawyers that can consultate with you too, all in the local area. And most of us, my father retired from DWP after 35 years. He worked in this local area, worked with you guys. He's also a tribal member, indigenous, trusted you guys, went with everything, worked. And that's all we want is respect, to be able to trust and work together to save our water, save our lands, and save the culture of all the people, indigenous and even the ones that are here now. All of us work together to save our beautiful country up here. Like it was spoken, I know many people that travel from down there come up here. Our lakes are going dry, and a lot of our stuff is being destroyed, our trees, our land. All the beauty is starting to disappear. I go out pretty much every day when I'm not working, and I see a lot of it is dissipating. We just want the respect and the knowledge to know what's going on in our valley and what's happening to our culture and our land. So please be considerate, and I appreciate your time. Benoit.
Okay, the next speaker is Danielle Gutierrez, and after that, Cheyenne Stone.
Manahu, Inaniane Tanalbe Kakateris, Tova Wahamatuwanu Kimadu. I am the Big Pine Paiute Tribe's Tribal Historic Preservation Officer. I've been born and raised here in the valley. My dad was a hunter, so I'm familiar with the lands and the mountains within these areas and the creeks that used to run so freely that are now dried up when I take my kids there through these areas. The diversions made by DWP is affecting our environment, our ecosystems here in the Owens Valley. I want to thank the beginning speakers that spoke up on the fracking issues going down there. DWP, you have a chance here to stop these man-made disasters and destruction. All the way up towards my aunt, the chair, the Katsiticas, Charlotte Lang's lands, that's my mom's lands too, all the way down here, down south. It's all being affected by greed for money, for water, without allowing water to flow freely. Patsiata, the Owens Lake, the traditional name, it's similar to where all the water comes down into one and ends at Patsiata. It's no more. Right now, what's sitting in the middle of Patsiata is $1 billion infrastructure made by DWP. And therefore, they can't put water back into the lake, which caused many cancers and dust emissions because of that $1 billion infrastructure on the lake, inside the lake, which was once water flow from all the mountains and glacier from my area and from the waters farther up north. You travel up from Los Angeles up to about 250 miles to our area, you're going to see the lands, how it's being destroyed by the diversions of this water that once used to flow so freely. The tribal engagement policy is a good attempt, but there needs to be more. There needs to be proper tribal consultation with our tribal councils, our tribal leadership, our tribal people, because we are the original stewards of these lands. We know these areas. We were brought up in these areas. These lands have belonged to our people for thousands and thousands of years. And for us to be treated as insignificant, for our leadership to be treated with disrespect and not met at a tribal consultation level at the tables with the commissioners is a disrespect to all our nations. And this needs to stop. Policy and protocols need to be developed and established and put in place to recognize this and this need to protect our Mother Earth, because it's slowly 12 years. How many years have we told you guys, the people that came and invaded and forcibly removed our people, this is what's going to happen? Over 100 years, our elders, our ancestors said this was going to happen. And now we're down to 12 years, they're saying. You guys really need to wake up. Manahubu.
Okay, our next speaker is Cheyenne Stone, and after that, Samantha Seipert.
Manahu Inaniane Cheyenne Stone, Big Pine Owedunu Agimana, Nu Agimana Panatu Ihim. If I could just get a show of hands, how many of you guys love history in the room and around the table? Raise your hand. I only got 1, 2, 3. All right. All right, I got a few. Awesome. How many of you guys have been to the Owens Valley? Almost everybody. Sounds great. How many of you guys drink water? Oh, some people enjoy Coke. But anyways, thanks for participating. About 156 years ago, my ancestor Pontivici was one of the 1,000 captives who were forced marched to Fort Tejon in 1862. When I seen my vice chairman, actually I work with the Fort Independence Tribe, but what I'm going to say today is not on behalf of anybody other than myself as an environmental steward or indigenous person from the valley. My mother is from the Bishop Paiute Tribe, my father's from the Big Pine Paiute Tribe. I have family and great ancestors from Yosemite, descendants of Bridgeport Tom. But in short, recently your guys' staff, Clarence Martin, Ron Tucker, John Hayes, and associated staff, they made an attempt to do some co-collaboration in helping to preserve Camp Independence. And when I seen the effort and their efforts on behalf of DWP, I want to thank you and share my gratitude, because that's what we should be doing as people. When we go to somebody's homeland, we partake in how they respect the land, how they go about meeting other people. So I'm for the approval of the tribal consultation policy as just a plain old Indigenous person from the Owens Valley. But more so, as Elisa had mentioned, it's a very important matter to us to move forward, because this is a governing document that's going to open more dialogue. So I just hope in the future you guys would add some Indigenous people that are from the area to your ad hoc committees. I know Ms. Nunes is the chairman. I hope you guys definitely partake or take up Anna Hohag in her efforts to help educate people in developing further the policy or amending the policy after approval of it today. So thank you for your time, and aho.
Okay, the next speaker is Samantha Seifert.
Hello again. I just wanted to say thank you to President Levine and all of the commissioners for taking the time to hear all of the tribal leaderships and tribal members' stances on this very important policy. I also wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the Gabrielino Tongva Band whose land we are on today. I will not reiterate the history because that's not my place. I am a member of a tribe from up in far northern California, so people from this area are definitely the ones to tell you this history. But I can tell you that I do work for the legal department of the Native American Heritage Commission. I've been attending the Owens Valley Cultural Resources Task Force meetings for about 3 years now. More recently, I was appointed the acting Chief Deputy Tribal Advisor to Governor Brown through the end of his term, an office that was created under executive order with the purpose of creating consultation policies for state agencies. So with that, I have repeatedly offered my assistance with this policy, an offer that I have never been taken up on. At the most recent CRTF meeting in December, there was a lengthy discussion regarding this policy. Every tribal representative that was present in the room voiced serious concerns. The policy itself states that the goal is to foster a mutually beneficial, long-term relationship with area tribes. That must start with the creation of the policy itself. After a discussion with State Lands Commission staff, it was recommended that the adoption of the policy be postponed until further collaboration and consultation could take place, so that the policy would better represent the input and objectives from both LADWP and the tribes. In their furtherance of this goal, and the Native American Heritage Commission recommends the following. Collaborate with tribes to establish a mutually agreeable timeline for future consultation, meetings and deadlines, and future policy drafts, so that there are landmarks along the way. You're not just asking for a single extension with no end in sight. We want to see actual landmarks so that we can see that there's deliverable goods along the way. Collaborate with the tribes to review and respond to comments and concerns included in their comment letters from both drafts of the policy. Work with tribes to establish the purpose and membership for the Tribal Engagement Committee, and establish the responsibilities and expectations for the recently appointed LADWP Tribal Liaison. The current policy before you today does not reflect respectful and meaningful consultation necessary to create a document that furthers the policy's stated vision. As a result, the NAHC respectfully requests that the approval be postponed until a policy reflects the mutual understanding and agreement between LADWP and the Owens Valley tribes. I have written comment letters from both the Native American Heritage Commission and the State Lands Commission that I would like to enter onto the record, and I will give those to whoever would be appropriate. But I would like to thank you for your time and consideration today.
Stand at the security officer, he'll bring them up to me.
Okay, who is going to present this item?
I will. Thank you. At our last meeting at December 12th, we made a presentation to the board on the various items related to this policy process, how we got to this point. So I'm not going to repeat all of those again, but I do want to underscore that this is your board's policy to consider and adopt. And we have fashioned for you a rather unique way to engage with the tribes that we believe, once implemented, will address any remaining concerns. And the tribal engagement policy is a series of commitments that form the ethical basis of engagement by your board with the tribes. And our tribal engagement policy hinges on the following commitment found on page 3 of the policy. It says, specifically, LADWP commits to provide direct access to the LADWP Board of Commissioners through a subcommittee of the board, this Owens Valley Tribal Engagement Committee, which will provide opportunities to collaborate and participate on policy-level issues. LADWP strives to strengthen its ability to successfully resolve issues of mutual concern with the Owens Valley tribes before disagreements arise. So that's the first thing, the establishment of your committee. Secondly, LADWP commits to establishing what we're calling working level agreements with each Owens Valley tribal government. LADWP recognizes that such agreements would be subject to and not infringe on the authority or responsibility of each tribal government. So what we've consistently heard from the tribes is that they want to talk to decision makers and not to staff, and that's been stated again today. So you are the decision makers at LADWP, and this policy provides direct access as no others have, whether here in Los Angeles or elsewhere. And secondly, whatever is perceived by the tribes to be lacking in the policy, and this is really important, can be addressed and agreed to by the working level agreements. So whatever the issues that were stated today that still remained unresolved, what this policy allows for you is to begin those discussions. They've asked to meet with you to talk about them. That is what this policy is for you to sit down and talk with them and work out whatever they would like to talk about. And this was done because we've seen over the years that the tribes in the Owens Valley are not uniform in their wants, needs, opinions, and perspectives. And knowing this and respecting their individual sovereign status, we specifically didn't set out, to make a one-size-fits-all policy. The working level agreements will allow the unique concerns and substantive issues of each tribe to be included individually. This will occur as your board's Owens Valley Tribal Engagement Committee meets with each tribe individually. Now, these documents are always difficult to produce, but I do believe that we did an honest and legitimate job of engaging in the development of the tribal engagement policy, as noted in your board package. And just to reiterate that we began discussions over 120 days ago and did give that long in terms of commenting on the policy. We did engage with Dr. DeBegay to help us through that, and along through that was George Chabork, who's here in the audience today from the mayor's office. More importantly, I believe it's in our best interest to move forward and actually begin engaging with the tribes to resolve our differences and to create new relationships and opportunities for improvement. At the same time, at my level, the staff level, we continue to engage with state agency staff at the State Lands Commission and the Native American Heritage Commission to improve those relationships and to address their concerns. And I do want to thank Samantha and staff from State Lands Commission for their assistance to this date. That would conclude my comments.
Well, first of all, I appreciate everyone who's taken the time to drive here today to speak with us.
Can you speak
I'm sorry. I was saying that I'm very appreciative of everyone who's taken the time to come here today. And I'm very excited to be working alongside Commissioner Vasquez on this important committee. For me, it's a great honor to serve as your tribal liaison. And I can promise you that this document was really created in a good faith effort. And Richard has been very communicative with us. And we've tried to engage and meet with each of the tribes that are outlined in this, this agreement as much as possible. The reason why I propose that we move forward with the document as it is because, as Paul stated, he said, I'm a man who, when I shake your hand, I mean it. And because I've been going to Owens Valley for over 10 years, your people, your land is something that I take very seriously, and you have my word as your liaison that just as I've made myself available during every time that you've come, not only to board meetings, but for other events in Los Angeles. I've always made myself available to meet with you. I've followed up on your requests, and I think that we've made a lot of progress working together over the past few years. So you have my word to continue being as dedicated, as respectful, and as transparent as you expect me to be. And knowing Commissioner Vasquez as well as I do, I could promise you to receive that same kind of relationship with her leading this committee as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming, and for the folks that are in the video on Bishop, thank you so much. I had the opportunity to meet some of you in person when I went to hold office hours now last year. And it was a wonderful experience, and I really hope that I can come back and do that more. I think that these policies are important. They matter in a world that maybe might not be mined. My background is very different than a lot of the commissioners here and a lot of the staff, and I understand of the importance of having these documents and having some formalized way to communicate and some agreements that we can move forward and work with together. I have always been open, and you know where to find me. And I can tell you that you don't need a document to speak to me. And I think that that's something that I offer not only to folks on the tribes, but just anyone in LA and anywhere. If you want to talk to me, you can reach out to me, and I'll be happy to support and help and try to bridge issues that might be there. I do feel that this document really try to encompass and bring, again, these agreements that we're moving forward towards. And I also don't see this as an ending document, as something that is written in stone or is the final word, but it's actually, I see it as a door that we're opening, that we're utilizing as the beginning of being able to finally be able to have a better relationship. And as someone that really believes that the power is actually in the relationship, I think that this gives us also some responsibility for us to live up to and continue fostering better relationships with folks in not just in Bishop, but in the many tribes that sit in Owens Valley and in Mono Lake. So I really hope that you all that we can all actually come to this place where we can see this as a beginning and not as an end. I also wanted to ask our council, because I have heard this before, this question has come to me before privately, about having a appointee from the tribes being part of the commissioners or the commission body. Would you please address how that can, if that's possible, or how that is not possible, for what I understand, or so?
Certainly. Currently, all commission appointments in the city of Los Angeles are set by the Los Angeles City Charter. The requirements and the eligibility for commission participation is set forth in the city charter. So the short answer is we would have to amend the charter. Okay.
So if you all decide to amend the charter, please let me know, because I have a bunch of other amendments that I would like to make. For what I understand, is quite complicated. But I think it's important for us to know that sometimes maybe it's not that we're not willing. It's there are some other, policies and rules that prevent. But again, I think that this policy, again, I see it as, and I think someone mentioned this earlier in one of your talking points, that this is not per se like what we would like to see, but I think, again, it's the beginning of something that we can start working with. And I especially really welcome the idea that we're going to have a government-to-government relation. And this is why I'm honored and I'm excited to be working with Christina, that has way more experience than me on travel liaison affairs with all of you, and that we can start having that conversation from a government to government, at least here at DWP. I know that there is other bodies of government that also interact with DWP, but that at least we can have that type of relationship and start there. I can tell you that my first office hours were last year, and I'm looking forward to host some others in the future. And I have also offered to have videos and or phone calls that you can reach out to me. I know that other folks have reached out to me for other issues, so I'm here to help and to collaborate. Thank you.
I actually do have some brief remarks, hopefully brief. I really do appreciate the level of work and the spirit with which the staff has undertaken the development of this policy, and also the context in which it comes to us, that being a specific amendment to a lease with state land. So I do want to note that progress often requires a little push, and appreciate that push. I am, however, reluctant, frankly, to, notwithstanding my complete confidence in the commissioners that will be tasked with moving forward regardless of what we do today, I'm reluctant to move forward with this item, or at least to support the item for, I think it was transparency and respect were words that were used a great deal, and what respect looks like is often contextual. And it's a concept that I am sort of deeply committed to and spend a lot of time thinking about, and recognize that sometimes you have to get outside of your own context to truly appreciate what's being said or what you're hearing. It seems to me that part of the disconnect is the lack of decision maker engagement in the actual development of the policy. And I do believe that how you get started does matter. I recognize that there has been an effort to comply with deadlines that have been imposed upon us by state lands. I also am cognizant of at least the potential that there could be some further loosening of those deadlines. We don't need a policy for our commissioners to sit down with tribal leaders to discuss how they become more comfortable with and frankly, able to more readily endorse a policy that we submit to state lands. We simply don't need the policy to do that. We have a committee. I believe that they are, capable, ready, willing, and I concur that it is important to recognize the separate, legitimate rights of the indigenous nations that are before us. Sometimes things that seem small, are not. They are very, very large, and often what respect looks like is sitting across a table from someone, looking them in the eye, and specifically engaging and addressing their issues. When I look at the substance, the substantive difference between what's on the page and what's being requested, it is not difficult to bridge. I just believe that building that bridge requires direct conversation above the level of our staff. And for that reason, I would be more comfortable delaying the vote, working with the parties, including state lands. I do not believe that this is a process that should require months. I think this is a process that could be very quickly engaged with some time and effort on the ground, and I'd like to see that process take place so that this relationship, this shift in how we deal with the tribes in this, the Owens Valley tribes, starts off in a manner that reflects the spirit and what I believe will be the substance of the future relationship between DWP and Indigenous people.
I find this a tough one also. I'm a little confused by the context of a state lands deadline of December 23rd and a letter from state lands essentially urging us not to meet that deadline. And I'm curious how all that works.
Yeah, I think that last sentence, we got, and someone can come to the table and tell you the timelines, because we did get an extension through the end of this month. It's not reflected on that slide there.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Anselmo Collins, Director of Water Operations. And yes, the deadline that we were originally given was December 23rd. Actually, that was based on a request that we had of State Lands Commission for an extension to December 23rd. As you recall,
extension from what?
The original deadline was June. So we asked for a 6-month extension, which was granted. Back on December 11th of this past year, we came in front of this board. We talked about the engagement policy just to kind of give you an idea of what we're working on. As a result of that meeting, the State Lands Commission staff, who was listening to the board meeting, had some concerns. They happened to have a meeting regarding the Owens Lake the day after, and I received a phone call from their tribal liaison saying that they had some concerns and that they wanted to have the opportunity also to have 30 days to review what was being discussed with this board on the 11th. So they actually granted us an extension. The extension that was granted, and which was initiated by State Lands Commission, by the way, the extension was until January 31st of this year. Now, backing out just the dates for your benefit, if the board does consider and approve this policy today, it is subject to the Prop 5, the 5 council meetings. The first council meeting is on the 14th, which would mean the soonest it would be completely approved would be the 23rd of January, just in time for us to turn around and forward and send the documentation to State Lands Commission to meet the January 31st deadline. The reason why that deadline is important is because in early February, there will be a State Lands Commission meeting where they will be discussing this. So I think what you have in your board letter may be a little confusing, but that is why we have the deadline currently of January 31st, 2019.
Well, it is confusing.
Yes.
I have complete confidence in my colleagues Vasquez and Noonan, who will be the liaisons with the tribes. But I'm also very troubled in the same way that Commissioner McLean Hill is about the perception on the other side. I mean, obviously the whole purpose of this is collaboration and cooperation and improving our relationship with the tribes and working with them in ways that are mutually constructive. And I don't know enough about the individual tribes to know the extent to which the distress comments that we've heard reflect deep feelings among the different tribes. And I must confess, I walked into this session completely committed to voting to approve this, because it looks to me to be what both sides should want. But it doesn't sound to me like it's being interpreted that way at this moment.
If I could jump in.
Yeah, please. And also, I mean, is there a way to learn from state lands? I mean, state land's letter is very clear. Please don't approve of this right now. But if we have this deadline looming before us imposed by state lands, I'm not sure what choice we have given the different requirements of getting this to council before the revised deadline.
Well, what the policy does, I think the policy answers the concerns that were brought up today itself, because it's a framework directing, or the board
to do exactly what's
being requested. And so by taking action to approve the policy, you're setting forth a series of actions and conversations and everything that goes with it that will get these two ladies here in a room with each tribe individually, and we have set forth a commitment to develop then individual working level agreements. You've heard some of that today. We didn't hear from Bishop, which is the single largest tribe up there. They have their own concerns, and so we specifically set forth basically the policy as a framework that establishes the committee to sit down and develop individual agreements with each one, which then in essence forms the individual consultation engagement policies between the department and every single tribe that we talk to.
Well, it sounds exactly like that to me. It sounds like what we are setting forth is exactly what people say they want, but if you were to go to ask me, go back to them, well, that's exactly what the policy sets up, is the ability, is the commitment to do that.
Except the request that's being made is not that you go back to them, right? The request that's being made is that they, as it relates to this particular policy document, that they have the opportunity to talk to our commission representatives.
And that's what our policy is.
No, but we don't need to adopt the policy for that to happen, right?
But we have this deadline.
No, I get that part. That's a different issue, right?
Yeah.
We've got a representative from State Lands here who not exactly State Lands. You're from the other commission, right?
Jennifer Maddox, who is the
State Lands
tribal liaison, and I are in communication right now. She is listening in to the meeting.
Yeah.
She would like me to express that State Lands does support an additional extension. The idea basically being that you guys have already requested multiple extensions to this. They would rather see an additional extension and get a document that the tribes are really happy with, as opposed to rushing through a document that it seems as though the majority of tribes are not happy with, in the interest of in the interest of not having another extension. So if we're getting an extension one way or the other, and I'm apologize, I'm literally reading her text messages, is that they would rather see an extension be granted and then actually really work on a document that the tribes are happy with. She also wanted me to say that they've already prepared a staff report to amend on February 4th. I have received that, and that they would amend until April of 2019. So
I am curious, substantively, what is it about the content of the document that troubles anybody? It seems like the content of the document is to do exactly what everybody who doesn't like the document is requesting be done.
I don't want to speak on behalf of the tribes, but I can tell you that our issues with the document is that it really lacks a lot of specificity. There's a lot of really vital definitions that are missing. There's a lot of language that sounds great, but really lacks the actual, specifics of how this is going to be implemented. And so I think that those are the concerns that we're hearing. I would obviously welcome any of the tribal representatives in the room or in Bishop to elaborate on that, because I don't want to speak on their behalf. But that is what we are hearing.
Yeah, but I believe, and Richard, please correct me, I believe that this tribal engagement policy is somewhat high level. So it's not, and I love your comment earlier about having benchmarks so that we can meet them. I agree with that. Like, how can we need to measure, right? We need to kind of figure it out, are we getting there or whatever there is. But I think this, and Richard, please, you can step in at any moment. I believe that this policy is what I like to call it agreements. The way that we're gonna kind of engage and the way that we're gonna talk to each other and who's gonna talk to each other, not so much what's gonna happen, but the in detail.
And again, I should not be the person standing up here speaking on behalf of the tribes. That's not my place.
Well, actually, I think that's right. And
so
I'd like to invite the elected representative of the tribes to hear.
Commissioner, may I say something while?
Yes, please.
Just want to mention a couple of things. I think Commissioner McLean-Hill said that she truly believes that the best way to engage is to sit down, look at the other person in the eyes, and have a conversation. And I recognize that my involvement is at a staff level, but that's exactly what we did in this case.
No.
With every single tribe.
I just have to say this. This is not a critique of staff, and I think part of the way to get out of this is to be less defensive about where we are. And I absolutely concur. I mean, when I look at the substantive issues, I believe that bridging the substantive issues will not be a challenge. But how those issues are bridged can set the tone for how we move forward, and who's at the table in doing so does matter. And that is what we are being told. And that really is the crux of the issue here, and that's the only reason
that
and
I recognize it, Commissioner. Yes,
to
I recognize
support
that, and
this policy.
I wasn't trying to defend what we did. I think we did the right thing, but I recognize completely what you're saying. The reason why I was saying that is because I truly believe in face-to-face communication, and I think we have multiple meetings with all the tribes attempting to do so. Obviously, the feeling that we accomplished that is not shared by everybody. But I think that, as Richard's mentioned before too, the working level agreement, the tribe-specific agreement is really where we believe we'll be able to have our elected officials engage with the tribal leaders.
Let me make a suggestion. And it relates to the deadline and the process and the good faith on both sides. I'm uncomfortable with seeking another deadline when we've worked so hard to meet this one, and when state lands has been very clear, at least until the last 5 minutes, about this deadline. Why don't we adopt this policy and meet the deadline and ask for a re-review of it in X number of days, 90 days, 180 days, something like that. So, I mean, the idea seems to me to be seeking collaboration and cooperation and engagement. And this is not designed to be the final word. It's designed to be a mechanism to allow this type of engagement to proceed. We have this deadline facing us, for better or for worse, it's there. But in light of the fact that the desire is communication, and not to be rigid about how this is going to transpire, maybe a way to accomplish both is to adopt the policy. I guess I'm the swing vote here. And also seek a review of it in some arbitrary 180 days.
Well, yeah, was my note to myself here is that you can, in a sense, always, you can adopt the policy now, you can always revise it later. You're not locked in at any time. And so it would be good to do that, let the commissioners go up, and speak with them, and then report back to this board. So I think the appropriate time to come back would be after they've had the opportunity to speak to every single tribe. Then they can give you a firsthand account, and then if whatever's needed, then you can take that action at that point.
So I'd like to make an amendment. I'd like to make an amended motion. I'd like to move approval with the caveat that after our two soon-to-be appointed representatives meet with the tribes and return with a report, that we revisit this 6 months from today, whatever meeting comes closest to the first meeting in June.
Second?
Okay, that amendment, those in favor of the amendment?
Oh, we're just voting on the amendment.
Just voting on the amendment. Those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Okay, those, and now, I move approval of the resolution with the amendment. Those in favor of the amended resolution say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
You're opposed?
opposed,
Okay. So it's approved by a 3-1 vote with Commissioner McLean Hill voting no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will return to management reports in reverse order, and we'll go to the transmission and distribution report.
I'll ask staff to come up to the table. One of the things of those being in this industry over the last 20 years is we've been looking at a change in our resource mix as we move to sustainability and renewables, is some of the transmission challenges that we're going to face in the entire state of California, because it isn't just LA, it's across the state. However, today I'd like to ask that staff present what some of the transmission issues and challenges LADWP will be facing, with the reminder that over the last 10 to 15 years, we significantly moved away from some of the infrastructure replacement that I think pretty much should have been occurring over the last couple of decades. They weren't, but the board, the council, the mayor took leadership in changing that about a year ago, in fact 2 years ago now, to move forward and start funding infrastructure that's necessary to meet the goals of the city, which relate to, again, sustainability, renewables, reliability. And I'd like staff to give more of a general presentation on our transmission system. And what's really, really important to me is, again, being involved in the industry for several decades, is I've always had as we develop policy, as we develop goals, as we look at various issues, that you got to bring someone that operates the system to the table. There needs to be someone that knows how the physics of the system works at the table. And today we have several staff members, I'll let them do self-introductions, but that are operators, that work on the grid, that know some of the challenges. And then this is just meant to be a foundational knowledge base that numbers of subsequent presentations will add to this, not over the next 2 months as much as over the next several years. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I just mean this is another presentation to add more knowledge to the commissioners as we move forward and look at various aspects of where we're going. So with that, I'd like to turn it over. I think, Louis, would you like to introduce, or Andy, maybe you would introduce the staff?
I have a quick question. This is a critically important presentation. I'm looking forward to hearing it. What's your anticipated time for this?
We've got about 35 slides. Depending on questions from the board members, it could take an hour or even longer.
It's likely an hour-long presentation, including responses.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, there is an item after this that it does not have to be heard today, so it's fine that this is the only and last item that we hear.
Okay.
Shall we proceed?
Please.
So good afternoon, Commissioners. Presenting today for you will be our Chief Sustainability Officer, Nancy Sutley, the Director of our Planning, Development, and Engineering Division, Louis Ting, and for nearly the last time we'll see him, Mr. Bill Barlack, the Manager of our System Reliability Studies Group. So Bill here at the end of the month, who is
37 years.
The guru of our System Studies Group, and he's done a phenomenal job training staff to take over for him. But Bill will be retiring here at the end of this month, February 1st. So.
And Bill is really the true operator of the grid, keep the lights on. He's the expert.
So why are we letting him go?
Because you can't stop me.
I figured that was the answer.
I offered him a brand new laptop, and that didn't sway him. So.
Shall we start?
So I think as a General Manager said, this is just kind of a foundational discussion talking about how, a little bit about how transmission fits into the 100% clean energy future. And so as we laid out, to meet the 100% clean energy goal, to continue to operate the system reliably, we'll need to construct hundreds of miles of new and upgraded transmission lines. The next slide. So as you can see, we are making progress towards our clean energy goals. You can see the dramatic increase in the reliance on renewable energy since the early 2000s and through just to 2025. And of course, the goals go beyond 2025 to the statutory goals of 60% by 2030 and the IRP goals of 70% by 2036. But just at a point in time for FY 2017, 2018, this amount of renewable energy represents, it could meet all the energy needs of Anaheim, Glendale, Burbank, Glendale, I'm glad I have Glendale twice, very nice place, and Riverside combined. So we've been able to really ramp up our renewable energy production and use on our system. Next slide. And of course, this is all in the context of the goals around greenhouse gas emissions, as we heard passionately in public comment. And you can see that the trends for LADWP are very good around greenhouse gas emissions, that we're currently about a little over 40% below our 1990 emission levels, and that by 2030 and we will be 80% below our 1990 emission levels, and that's true for LADWP and true for the power sector across California. And then go to the next slide. And again, as we heard some in public comment this morning, the concern about smog in Los Angeles, it is true. We still have the worst air quality in the nation. But LADWP has made the investments to control those NOx emissions from the in-basin power plants, and it's about over a 90% reduction in NOx levels from our in-basin generating plants since the 1990s. And if you look overall at the region, the power sector accounts for a very small percentage of the NOx emissions in the basin, and that the preponderance of them comes from mobile sources. And so there's sort of two implications. One is that much of the fossil fuel use, not just in Los Angeles but across California, is in the transportation sector, and that as we continue to make progress cleaning up our own generation, that the move to electrify transportation will have the most significant and dramatic impact on local air quality needs across the Los Angeles basin, and that it's important that we continue to play a role in making that happen.
We're going to
turn it over to the experts.
Oh, all right. Just my background, I've been working for the department for almost 38 years. I've spent my entire career in operations. I've spent the last 31 years at the control center in Sun Valley. I've developed a lot of tools that we operate by, but I think my purpose here is to give you a little bit of background and to explain the importance as it is right now of local generation to maintaining our transmission reliability. And to do that, I need to provide some background to you. So the first thing we're going to do is just talk a little bit about our power system and what it looks like. You can see we have generation over here, and then we have transmission and distribution. You can think of the distribution system as surface streets in a transportation system. So our distribution system are surface streets. But our transmission system are the freeways. And what I mean by that is if you have a problem in your surface streets, you're going to affect a neighborhood. If you have a problem in your freeway system, if the 405 were to close, you would have a major impact not only on the west side, but all those people would try to go on other freeways and basically affect the entire city. So that's how that's how to think of our transmission system, that it will not only affect local areas, but the entire city. Just some more background, and maybe you know this, maybe you don't. This is how LADWP fits into the state grid. You can see that those red lines are all the lines, are all the transmission lines that the California ISO operates as a transmission operator. The green lines that I've just highlighted are DWP's lines that we operate. And you can see, I'm going to refer back to this drawing later, so I'd like to just point out that this just shows in the state of California, but the Pacific DC intertie goes up to the northwest. The IPP DC line goes to Utah. We have ties to Arizona, Nevada. So our transmission goes all over the western United States. And there's also Imperial Irrigation District in the extreme south and Sacramento up in the north. When I use the word basin transmission as background, what I'd like you to know that these are the high voltage lines, 230,000 volts and 138,000 volts. But these are high voltage lines that connect all of our basin transmission stations together. And just to back up a little and say, this presentation has to deal with transmission and very little to do with distribution other than the relationship between the two. But I really want to emphasize that we have about 30 transmission stations in the basin, and our basin transmission is what connects those. Our basin generation, as you know well, is at Haynes Valley, Scattergood, and Harbor. Haynes first went online in the early 60s, was repowered in 2005 and 2013. Valley went online about the late 50s, and it was repowered in the early 2000s. Scattergood in the city of El Segundo came online in the late 50s. Its first phase of repower was 2015. Harbor Generating Station was actually built before the Second World War. The first unit went online before that. The rest of the units came online after the war. They were repowered in 1995 and 2002. When I say repower, of course, these are all very efficient, clean, modern jet engines. That's what we're talking about. And to give you a picture of how this fits into the city of Los Angeles, I'm going to highlight where the generating stations are. So there's Valley Generating Station up in the San Fernando Valley, Scattergood over near the airport, Harbor near the harbor, and Haynes, which is actually in the city of Seal Beach, but directly connects to the rest of our transmission system. Now, we do have 30 stations there locally, but I was just going to highlight 2 of them so you can get a feel for it. This station is Tarzana, which is up in the valley, up in the West Valley, and this is Olympic, which is in West Los Angeles, and we have transmission that connects the two. We could have drawn other circles around other stations and drawn other lines, but it would have been a mess on this diagram, so we just wanted to just give you an example. This is the fact of life that I've garnered after 31 years operating at our control center, and I wanted to make sure that, thank you for all the kind words that you've said, Andy, but I'm not the operator. I'm the engineering guy that supports the operations, and the guys that do that are our load dispatchers. I just wanted to clear that up. But the fact of life after working with them for so long is our system, our basin transmission system, was never intended to be reliably operated without generation from our local resources, from our local thermal generating stations. That is a fact.
Why?
I can answer the question later. This is a structured presentation, and if I don't answer by the time I'm done, you ask that again, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Reliably operated, what does that mean? There are reliability standards with respect to operations that are mandated by the federal government. We must comply with those. That is consistent with our culture of compliance with these so-called, you've heard the term, the NERC standards, N-E-R-C, the NERC standards. Those standards deal with operations specifically, and they came into existence after the 2003 New York blackout, and they were the direct consequence of that. So our culture of compliance also requires that we comply with these. With no basin repowers, because our generation is the foundation for our transmission reliability locally, if we don't repower those units, if we don't repower that generation at our local plants, we're going to need dramatic upgrades of our transmission system in order to maintain compliance with these federal standards. Just to let you know, DWP compliance with these federal standards is audited every 3 years. Our next audit is about a year from now, and we are audited by federal authorities or their designees. There have been multiple examples made of utilities that have failed to comply. And the standard fine or sanction for failure to comply is on the order of $1 million a day per violation. The first criteria that we have to comply with, and I'm going to boil down a bunch of NERC standards into one, and it really says that we cannot overload our infrastructure. We can't overload our transmission lines. That is because the federal government realizes that if you overload these lines and you push more power into these lines that they were designed to carry, you will damage them. And to replace a transmission line, as you've heard maybe in the past several meetings, takes years. So the federal government wants us to protect our infrastructure at all costs. And I'm going to talk a little bit about ratings here, and this technical, but you can push power through a transmission line, and it's rated for a certain amount of power. If you push more power than that, you will damage it. That threshold is called the normal rating, and we assume we can push power through that line at its rating and never damage it or have a loss of life. There's a little fat built into those lines called the emergency rating, which if we run into trouble and we get into an emergency situation, we can push those ratings a little bit, maybe 10%, 20%, but it's for a very brief time. So that's the flavor of ratings. That's about as technical as this is going to get. I'm sorry, was there a question?
I have a question. What would be an example of when the department would use the emergency rating?
You know, I've got a very good example of that, if you can hang on for a minute.
Okay.
Okay, great. And this is an example, okay? Per the standards, DWP must always be prepared to lose the most critical element, be it a generator or a transmission line. I don't mean we can't find it, lose it. I mean something happened and we lost its ability to transmit power. For example, if you have an extension cord in your house and the wires become frayed and the wires touch, what happens? You get a spark, and the circuit breaker box outside your house, in my case, a little switch flips, and that de-energizes that circuit to protect your house and the rest of the wiring. If you overload a circuit, the same things happen. In our system, we have the exact same thing. We can lose an element because of a short circuit, but we always have to be prepared for the loss of that element, and I'll explain a little bit more. When we lose that element, power instantaneously and automatically redistributes among these circuits, among the transmission lines that remain. We can, and that's according to the laws of physics, without any operator action. This just happens in the blink of an eye. One of the NERC standards says, when that happens, you cannot load the remaining elements above their emergency rating. So let's say we have a transmission line in the valley that might be good for 382 megawatts. If the worst thing were to happen and we lost another element that might cause that transmission line to load above 382 megawatts, we might be able to push it to 482 for a very brief time. But then we have to reduce the power on that line. And the one thing we don't want to do is drop customers, and we're going to talk about that now. But the most important part of this slide is that up until now, our basin generation ensures our compliance with these NERC standards, with these federal standards. This is how our transmission system works. Mr. Wright was saying we've got a guy that can tell you how the transmission system works. Here's how it works. I'm going to, this little box, remember I had the ISO picture, the state of California, and I said all of our transmission goes external, a lot of our transmission connects us to external resources outside the state of California. That's what this box is. It's a graphical representation of all that transmission that goes to the Pacific Northwest, goes to Utah, goes to Arizona, et cetera. We import almost all of our power from external resources. And that imported power comes into the north part of the San Fernando Valley and goes through transmission lines from the San Fernando Valley into the basin. And that is a north to south power flow. That's just the way the physics works. That's the way the system was originally intended to operate. So we get this north to south flow. Our generators, as you know, 3 of the 4 plants are in the south. Let me show you what happens. These generators serve local load. If they were not on, these arrows would get really big. These arrows would get bigger, meaning there would be more power flow on those lines. Without the basin generation, this basin transmission indicated by these arrows may overheat and exceed its ratings, resulting in widespread customer power outages. How does that work? Well, in order to protect that equipment, we would have to take it out of service. Next couple of slides will show you what happens with that. But this event is most likely to occur during summer peak conditions or during the winter time when we have elements out of service for maintenance. For example, we had a blue cut fire. Mr. Kendall, was that about 3 years ago?
2016.
Okay.
Mid-2016.
So we're calling it 3-4 years ago. Okay, 2-3 years ago. Some of the elements, this, you can't really see it. I wish it were darker. But there is a couple of transmission lines that come in from near Victorville in the desert, and they come into South Central Los Angeles. And they terminate at a station called Century, which is at the corner Century and Central, right in the heart of South Central. Those 2 lines were both damaged in the Blue Cut fire. They were both damaged. It took a month or so to repair both those circuits because of the fire damage. The fire burned along the lines, and there were miles of transmission line that had to be replaced. It took a month. During that time, had we not had generation from our Harbor generating station and our Haynes generation station that feed directly into that Century station, we might have had to drop customers for days that are fed from Century.
But this is the same phenomenon that happens every summer around July when the heat stroke, right? That week of heat that we get, or those days that are really hot.
It really happens when there's wind. And a fire starts and the fire just takes off. I don't think it has anything to do with temperature as much as it has to do with
But it does,
wind.
you do say in your presentation that it says may overheat and exceed allowed ratings.
That's the transmission lines get hot because you push too
And
much
it's
power
likely
through.
during summer peak periods and maintenance outages.
And this past July is overheat was all distribution-related issues, not transmission. So
Got
the
it.
transmission may affect distribution, but distribution typically don't affect transmission.
I want to clarify, the transmission line gets hot not because of the ambient weather, but because we push too much power through it. That's
I
why it
understand
gets
that.
hot. Okay. The point being that we had to take these lines out for a month to repair them. In that time, had we not had generation available at Harbor and Haynes, we would have had to drop customers for extended periods of time from Century in order to protect the remaining elements in our system. That generation that we have to have online and running to comply with our federal standards is called reliability must-run generation. And it's not an imaginative, it's not a very imaginative term. It's for reliability and it has to run. So it's called reliability must-run generation, or RMR generation. Without that generation, following the loss of any element, basin transmission would exceed its allowable ratings, and that's prohibited by federal standards. So the quick answer, why do we need basin generation right now, is to meet federal standards that if we were to exceed or not comply with, we'd be subject to fine. I'm going to repeat this diagram to show you a very good example. Like I said, here's our transmission system, which I call the freeways, and our distribution system, which are the side streets. This is another view of that same system, and you see we have generating stations feeding into what we call transmission receiving stations. We have external generation feeding into transmission stations, and those transmission stations are all connected by the blue lines, which are our transmission lines back here. So this is just another view of that. The point of this is, and Mr. Ting mentioned it, we could have distribution problems that may affect our side streets, maybe a few hundred or a few thousand customers. However, that's these little homes right here connected to these stations, which are called distribution stations. However, if we have a problem at a receiving station, it is the source for all of those distribution stations. So if we lose a receiving station, it affects the freeways, not just the surface streets. And this is an example of a need for RMR basin generation. These are pictures taken from a transformer fire. This is the transformer that's on fire. This is the smoke from that fire that can be seen throughout the valley on July 8th, 2017. We had some generation at Scattergood that was available, some that was not. Some took too long to start. It was slow starting, so we couldn't start that. But we pushed all the generation from Scattergood to its limits. And we still had to drop 600,000 Angelenos in the valley and in West Los Angeles for reliability reasons, meaning as if we hadn't dropped them, we would have permanently damaged our transmission. So we dropped them for several hours, put the fire out, and then restored them after the fire was out. Without Scattergood, my group did a study at the control center saying, that's fine, you dropped 600,000 Angelenos for a brief time to fight the fire. If we didn't have Scattergood, how many more customers, or how many more, not customers, how many more people would we have had to de-energize in order to do this same thing, fight the fire? We would have had to drop an additional 250,000 Angelenos. The total is the total between 600,000 and 250 is about 25% of our customers. That was with no Scattergood generation. Now, full restoration of this event took 12 hours, which was pretty quick given how much damage was done. This is an example of some tweets we got from Twitter. I don't want to go into them in any detail. One person says, it's 70 degrees outside, but it's 90 degrees in the house, and I have twin newborn babies. That's a problem. These people were out of service for 12 hours. To reinforce this, it could have been longer and it could have been worse.
So what is one of the proposed solution here is increasing, like Bill mentioned and also Nancy mentioned, is that we dramatically upgrade our transmission system. And that includes both out of basin and in basin.
Yep.
And that is to not just to increase more renewables while decreasing in basin gas generation, but is to also bring compliance into our department system continuously. And we have to maintain the level of reliability of the current reliability levels, and we also have to minimize load shedding. Next slide. So in addition to our efforts on the 100% renewable study and also the OTC study and for the in-basin generation plants, our long-term transmission plan, which is a 10-year transmission plan study that's rolling, that's every year we do a study, a rolling study, that it actually found out that if we don't do anything different than what the OTC study said, meaning we kept all the in-basin generation repowered, we have to install 173 miles of transmission, mostly in basin. And on top of that, if we take one of the cases that the consultants had done, there's 1,661 megawatts repowered. If we don't do any of them, take one of the cases, like one of the speaker mentioned, we have to do about 303 miles or 136 miles of transmission line and 167 miles of external transmission line. A total of over 500 miles of transmission that needs, about 500 miles of transmission needs to be done in order to continue the renewable energy that we need to get and to comply.
Because earlier you mentioned that the system has not been designed specifically, right? So it sounds almost to me as you were describing the role of this in-basin generating in service stations. I couldn't help to think in the world of renewables as like the work of microgrids, and how, for example, there's more places where you can pull renewables, whether it is solar, well, in this case, probably solar and energy efficiency from, for example, a school or a hospital or a supermarket to a small neighborhood. Wouldn't that serve similarly the role of what we have now in a bigger scale, Scattergood, Hines, and Harbor?
So the one through the independent study that the consultants done did contemplate distributed energy resources as one of the alternatives. And they found out that there's just not enough technical feasibility and also real estate to build renewable energy in basin. So we had to build renewable out of the basin. Therefore, we had to beef up or have increased amount of transmission coming into the basin. And also beef up the in-basin transmission that Bill mentioned that's critical to reliability in the basin.
Right, but it sounds to me...
The presentation. You're asking incredibly good questions, but it's difficult for me to process it without more context.
So
if we could get through the presentation, that would be helpful, at least.
Thank you. So I just want to conclude this page is that the 100% study will show even more than these amount of transmission miles or 500 miles that in order to reach 100%, we're going to have we anticipate to see that from a 100% study. Next slide. So this is just to kind of graphically show what I just mentioned about 500 miles of new upgrade lines. The red transmission line is the additional transmission line coming from the OTC study, and the blue lines represent the existing long-term transmission plan study that we've done in order to get us to about 60% of renewables. So what the red represents is in order for us to get to about 60% of renewable RPS without doing any repower, we require additional 300 miles, which is represented in the red, just to reach 60%. So in other words, if we do the repower, we require about 173 miles, and represented by the blue. Then red is additional transmission if we don't need to do any repowers. Next slide.
And it'll affect all portions of the city, as you can see.
And how much would that cost?
So I will talk about costs in a later slide as based on our experience and industry experience, and also some of the costs that we have received. Okay, next slide. So it's going to take years. We all know that. But just for example, Scattergood Olympic Underground Cable, which 12 miles took us 12 years. We recently finished, we put an energization last year. We were very proud of that, and that took us 12 years to do 12 miles. The 2 Barren Ridge Transmission Project, which all of our renewables are coming in from that line, it literally took us 10 years, including planning and permitting, and going through their CEQA process. San Diego Gas Electric completed a Sun Power Link. Depending on what report you read and which filings you go by, it took decades to finish 100 miles. The Riverside Transmission Reliability Project started back in 2003 with the planning process. It is still to be determined when that project will get built. Next slide. I'm going to give you one example that Bill mentioned about from Tarzana is the Tarzana Olympic line, which is from the West Valley all the way down to the west side. So on the top of the map, you see this receiving station U located in Tarzana. All the way down to the south, on the bottom of the map, it shows receiving station K, which is border the city of Santa Monica on the street of Santanella. This transmission line corridor is indicated in red is actually existing transmission that we have already, which is about 8.82 miles of overhead and 3.21 miles of underground toward the west side. So all of the overhead lines traverses through the valley, and I will show you how densely populated it now is. It wasn't back in the 50s when we built a transmission line. It traverses through the Santa Monica Mountain and goes underground. That's okay. No, that's fine. It goes underground into receiving station K on the west side. So this, we obviously, after I show you the picture, it will require additional right-of-way. So under investigation and potentially condemnation of over 8.82 miles of property that we don't have right now. Next slide, please. So this is one of the streets in the Tarzana area in the valley. And it is literally the red lines from the top left to the bottom right indicate the existing transmission line and towers. Those are the existing lines that we have. So based on the study, we have to build additional lines mimicking exactly what we have there, either next to the existing lines, which we don't have property of, or we go underground, which I will give you an example of how much underground costs. So Scat Oli Cable A that we just finished 12 miles, it's about $12 million a mile. That's undergrounding. Overhead, Barren Ridge Transmission Project was over $300 million. It was over 60 miles. It's about $5 million a mile. One example from the industry is the most recent one. The undergrounding is Southern California Edison line in Chino Hills. That was over $240 million for 3.5 miles. It was $64 million a mile to underground from overhead. So that's just giving you an idea of what the costs are. And also on this picture, I just want to mention that back in the 50s, there were no schools and no residents there. It was all dirt. So we have plenty of right-of-way bend. Of course, had we got 100% then, we would have built more transmission lines then.
There were no people there.
That's right.
So next page.
And not that many cars.
Right. In addition to working on transmission, part of the transmission upgrade or build new or reconductoring is we have to deal with the distribution line that is circled in red. What do we have to do? We have to make sure we have the proper clearances. Potentially, we have to relocate these poles and relocate these lines, which, if you can see, this narrow residential street has nowhere to relocate these poles. So we had to undergrounding them. So on this particular route alone, from Tarzana to Olympic, it literally has over 13 to 15 distribution lines that we have to deal with, where all the crossings are. And again, we require outages, and there's going to be environmental permits and processes and customer engagements. Next slide, please. Along the same route, we actually found there's a four-way stop sign in this very congested Tarzana neighborhood. As you can see, where the large circle is, there's two towers on the top and the bottom right, top left and bottom right. So between those two towers, we may have to underground this transmission line in order to deal with the four-way stop sign. And again, I mentioned about undergrounding transmission line, anywhere from $12 million a mile based on our own experience to $64 million a mile. And plus, all of the cul-de-sacs that you see from the top and the bottom, we have to make sure that the customer impacts are minimized. And again, This is in the neighborhood Tarzana. There were absolutely no homes back in the 50s when we built this. Another example that we had to, based on the OTC study, next slide, is a new line that we had to build from the receiving station G, which on your far right, I apologize for not labeling it on the map, but receiving station G on the right-hand side is near the Atwater Village. On the left-hand side, where the line terminates, the blue, dark blue, purple line, is receiving station E, which is north of Toluca Lake. So it crosses 101 freeway, and in the middle, that's Griffith Park, and that's also Hollywood Hills. So that's existing transmission right-of-way that we have. So imagine the density population of commercial and residents on either side of the Hollywood Hills and the Griffith Park, but we had to traverse through that. Next slide, please. This is just one example of how the city has grown so much that the transmission line becomes next to a sidewalk and a school. So school's on the top left corner, you have the sidewalk next to it right away, and you have the street. So again, if you look at what we have to do, if we had to put a brand new tower, just like what the picture indicates, we have to put tower either on either side of the tower or underground it, underneath the transmission tower on the street. So all the options I mentioned before. Next slide, please. And again, same routing, goes through a beautiful park. I believe, Marty, you mentioned that this park was dirt before, so now it's a very beautiful park that this transmission crosses. There's already existing 2 towers. There's actually 6 circuits. We had to add 2 more circuits. Another 2 more lines next to somewhere near the park, in the park, on the street, where it didn't exist before. So, next slide. So I think I mentioned quite a few things and illustrated a few things on the transmission picture that why will it take so long? Well, California has very robust public disclosure engagement process called the California Environmental Quality Act for the EIR process. And that does take time. And added onto the permitting and trying to get the right working hours to do all the neighborhoods, both the CEQA process and the permitting process essentially took most of the time for the Scout-Ole Cableway project. Whether it's permitting with local jurisdiction or the state jurisdiction, whether it was a continued engagement with our customers that are concerned about undergrounding a high voltage transmission lines through their businesses and neighborhoods, that took most majority of the time. And for the acquiring right-of-way lands, Barron Ridge transmission project have over 400 parcels in the desert where there's absolutely nothing grows and nobody lives there. And the land owner, we had to condemn essentially half of the 400 parcel. We had to acquire the other half. And because of the fact that the process took so long, we had to hopscotch building transmission tower. Instead of doing it in a nice linear sequential way, we had to hopscotch building transmission towers from the south to the north, back to the north, back to the south, to the east, because we were acquiring the line at the same time that we're doing the construction. Outage coordination is very key because, again, what Bill mentioned about having an event like RSJ, and we'll mention at the very bottom that we can only really work on transmission upgrades and build new during wintertime because we have to do outage coordination. There's also, because of Aliso Canyon, there's also unforeseen gas curtailments now that require us to keep our transmission line in service during the wintertime because our peak is in the summer, gas usage peak is in the wintertime. And if they curtail our gas usage in the winter, that means we cannot shut down our transmission line in order to serve our load customers reliably. Obviously, there's some significant traffic impacts potentially, and underground, I mentioned about the cost.
So I think, as you can see from the presentation, as we're looking forward towards the transition to 100% clean energy, we have to start to address some of these transmission limitations. And so in the short term, it sort of is limiting our options and will require a significant amount of new and upgraded transmission. There's no question that there are long lead times when it comes to transmission. This is true not just for LADWP, but for certainly for all utilities in California, I think certainly across the West and maybe across the U.S. And so the local generation will play a role during that time period while we get the transmission system upgraded to help both bring in more clean energy and potentially to back off of some of the fossil plants as well. And then this is an area I think where again, this is not a problem of LADWP solely. This is a problem many utilities share, and I can tell you from my time in the federal government, I heard a lot about the constraints on developing renewable energy across the West, and the role that transmission plays in that, and how important public lands, for example, are, and the permitting at both at all levels, at the federal, state, and local level, is something that everybody has an interest in streamlining to be able to get these new transmission projects online to accommodate the increasing amounts of clean energy. And so just looking at the next steps, as you know, the strategic long-term resource plan is looking at all of these cases. It has multiple cases about both transmission investment and renewable energy investment, including the costs. You'll see the strategic long-term resource plan in the spring that has to come to the board for consideration, and then all of that will get incorporated into that long-term transmission plan, which is the actual what are we going to build when, how much is it going to cost.
So that concludes the presentation. Now, a couple of meetings ago, the board had asked questions about the energy imbalance market and also connections with the CAISO. We have a couple slides on that if you'd like to see it now, or if you want to see them, or we can come back with more information later at another date, another meeting. It's just a couple slides.
How does that relate to this presentation, the energy imbalance market? Because last time I was the one that specifically asked for that, and I was told that that couldn't be included because it was considered reliable.
Well,
and we're talking about reliability.
Why don't you go through that? There's only
There's only like 2 or 3 slides, so why don't we go through them?
I think the question that you asked, and I may have misunderstood when you asked it, was doesn't the energy imbalancement provide the reliability that the local generating stations do provide? And the answer is no. That the EIM participating entity must already be reliable and be resource adequate before participating in EIM. And if you don't have enough resources to completely supply your load and your reserves to supply your customer demand, plus to have extra on hand in case something happens, if you can't do that, you cannot participate in the market. In fact, EIM assumes the entities provide their own transmission reliability through their local RMR generation. If we make our generators in the basin available to the EIM market, the EIM process runs a simulation of the entire power system every 15 minutes, 5 to 15 minutes. And that could indicate that there is a transmission problem, and they would actually increase generation from our plants to be able to not violate the NERC standards for that problem. So participating in EIM has a reliability component only in as much as strategically placed local generation, which we have at our local generating stations, would be dispatched by the EIM process if in that process they identify transmission line, there's too much power flowing on some lines, and they have to raise generation locally to mitigate that. So that's the answer to the question.
Yeah, are we done with the presentation? Is it comment time?
One more.
Oh, one more. Okay,
One more.
got it.
What about connections to the ISO? I believe you asked a question, what about connections at Haynes and at Scattergood? Can DWP connect at those stations to the stations of El Segundo and Alamitos, which are approximate to Scattergood and Haynes? We've simulated this many times. This is one of the things that a question that gets asked all the time, and we've simulated it. What happens physically is when we make those connections to those ISO stations, more imports come into the north. More power flows into the northern part of our system and flows out to those interconnections at Scattergood and Haynes. And it actually loads, more power flows on our lines than if we didn't have those. So hopefully that's the answer to that question.
But doesn't serve our customers.
Actually, what happens, good point, thank you. What actually happens is some of the ISO power comes into our system, runs on our lines, and then goes out. So we're getting power flow on our lines that doesn't serve our customers. We get ISO power in our system. That's
So why does
utilizing our transmission.
ISO feel that it would be so helpful for us to engage with them on this?
I do not know. We deal with them, I can tell you we deal with them all the time. We have conversations with our counterparts at the ISO on a regular basis, almost every week, sometimes daily, because we're in the outage business and we want to take elements out to work on them, and sometimes we have to coordinate with them. And I can tell you that they know their system very well. They're the experts on our system, and that the people at the control center are the experts on our system.
I wanted to also suggest, if you'd like more information on this, this is literally an hour-long presentation in and of itself. Briefly, as Bill mentioned, is that the power comes in from the north to the south, and if the local generation isn't pushing back from the south to the north, you basically have an imbalance, and it starts running through our system and running through a lot faster than anticipated, which then overloads our lines and burns them out. But again, this is 30 slides worth of presentation if you would like it at a future point to really get into why
I
this
would.
happens.
I mean, this is really vital stuff, and for a layperson, speaking for myself, very complicated. I didn't do well in physics in college, so I had to move to liberal arts. So yes, I mean, I think more is better in terms of having a broader base of information.
Okay.
Yeah. Definitely, I agree. Would you like to ask a few?
I have a quick question, I think a quick question. In the context of the repowering, someone suggested to me that DWP owns an existing transmission site between Hoover and LA, and it's inoperative, so it's not being used, or it's not being used maximum. Tell me about the transmission site between Hoover and LA.
Hoover was originally built in the mid-30s, in the mid-1930s, as a works progress administration effort to put people to work and to harness the floods that occurred on the Colorado River, and then also up in the Columbia and the Tennessee Valley Authority. They were 3 concurrent projects. Hoover originally built 2 and then 3 high voltage lines from Hoover Dam into the LA Basin. 2 of them went to South Central, as we showed you, at Century and Central, and 1 went into the valley at Toluca. All 3 of those existing lines are still in service. There's not, as I know our system pretty well, and as far as I know, there are no unused transmission elements. In fact, what we've done is we took 2 of those lines and upgraded their voltage so they could transmit more power. That's what happened. But there is a system of transmission from Hoover Dam into the basin that's fully utilized.
So I confess I wasn't following this argument as clearly as I would have liked. I just couldn't follow it the way it was presented.
Sorry.
But part of the thing I couldn't follow was a suggestion that if we collaborated with Edison, that they may have some transmission capability, and some form of collaboration between DWP and Edison might increase our transmission capabilities. Does any of that make any sense?
Yeah, I think that's the series compensation.
So we are in collaboration. There is, it's throughout the whole entire WAC, Western Energy
Coordinating
Council, excuse me, I was in Coordinating Council. everyone within WEC, all of the utilities on the western United States do transmission planning process constantly. It's once a year that we always meet on a regular basis. And one of the projects identified that WEC has already in the process of getting approvals is that we're increasing transmission capability, again, because of what Edison and CAISO has decided, state has decided to do, not to repower Ventura. They're actually raising the transmission capability on the eastern side. So hopefully to make up some of that, and also to bring more renewables. We're in the same process with them. In fact, we're in the discussion stage with Edison, talking about perhaps partnering, potentially working on the same time, so that we can benefit from the overall increase in capacity of the same transmission line.
And does this potential collaboration with Edison pertain to an existing line?
Yes.
And who owns it?
We do.
But we're already using it.
We do, but also Edison participants.
There's a transmission system, and we own a portion, and they own a portion.
Kind of like Silmar.
Right. And we own a portion, and they own a portion. They want to increase their ability to import renewables. We do too. So we are partnering with them to make an upgrade to our system, to our portion of that transmission system at the same time they do.
And to what extent would that provide us with additional in-basin capacity?
Fairly significant. Right now, the number that's out there is about 940 megawatts total. Potentially, we can get 50% of that.
And how soon could that be done?
We're looking at somewhere around 2022 in service. But that's still in discussion.
Okay.
A couple things. First, I'm pleased to see Nancy at the table as a part of this presentation. If for no other reason, then I have a similar confession to that of Commissioner Levine with respect to my comprehension of general scientific concepts, and she excels at translating the technical to language that is more easily understood by those of us with that particular academic deficiency.
Thank you.
I also, though, am, as I've shared with staff, extremely interested in and happy to see and determined to have us elevate the conversation around transmission and distribution to one that is happening on par with and receiving the same level of focus and attention publicly that the conversation around generation is having, as these two matters are so closely interrelated. We have a very big task ahead of us as a society in general. I mean, humanity is facing a potential catastrophe, and the ability to address that is cannot be overstated. Our role and our opportunity to participate is quite profound. And I think it's important as a part of confronting these issues that we wrap our head around the complexity. I mean, the fact is, this is hard. And if it weren't hard, if there were an easy answer, we'd all be pursuing it, we'd be declaring victory, and it would be done. So the complexity is something that I think is important, that we elevate, that we explore, that we just lay on the table and sit with, not as a means of suggesting that we can't succeed, but really as a predicate to determining the best path forward. And for that reason, I'm also, again, excited to know that we not only have incredibly capable technical staff, but that we also have the environmental policy capacity at this agency that is rare. I mean, we have, the combination of professional expertise, is one that we are, that we can leverage in a way that gives us the potential to create another miracle. The fact that the city of Los Angeles exists is really based on the vision, the work, and the miraculous capacity of people who preceded all of us at this agency. And this community is looking to this agency to do it again. The thing that I'm most excited about in my service here is the willingness across the board for people to step up and take that on. So I continue to to try to be a good student and to be grateful for the time and the energy that all of you put into educating us as we walk down this road with you. Welcome, and also continue to be grateful for the many advocates and outside parties that are seeking to shape our response to this 21st century challenge, and want to understand and want to make sure that as we move forward, that we're continuing to pair extremely important and meaningful technical expertise with strategic and thoughtful and innovative strategic questions so that we arrive at the best possible decision with respect to the various pieces of the puzzle that are coming before us that get us to a place where we have decreased our carbon footprint, where we are reaching for and arriving at the sustainability goals that we've set, recognizing it's not tomorrow, but it's soon. And so with that, I will stop talking, but I do appreciate your work and am humbled by the opportunity to participate in this process with you.
I hear the arguments about reliability and the constraints, and I don't hear anything new that I don't already know that you guys have presented or that I didn't understand before. I think what I'm curious about is we need to make an investment, whether we invest on in-basin gas power generation or renewables. And to me, it's just that, is whether we're going to invest on A or on B. And the way I see it, or the way that I want the world to be, I would prefer to invest my money, or our money, or the ratepayer money, in something that we're going to utilize in the future, and that is going to take us to the next phase and to the 20th century, the future, and in that it's going to give us more of a point return on the investment. That's something that perhaps might seem comfortable, easy to do, but perhaps the grid, and this wasn't designed by us and any of you. I don't think you made it this way, or myself, but I just don't think that we can hide behind that argument anymore. We have some challenges, and as there are challenges, there are also opportunities. And I definitely, next time, I want to maybe hear a little bit of a presentation where you present the realities, but you also can present the future and the possibilities. And because I personally understand this has been my world for very long, and I know that I, as a ratepayer, have to make an investment to see more renewables in my grid, in my rooftop, in my neighborhood, and I'm personally willing to do that. And I think that in this department, we have incredible engineers that are looking out for the physics and the engineering aspect of how to get us there. And I think some of us are looking out for how we're going to pay for it. And as much as we need to pay for one, we need to pay for the other. So let's figure it out how we can pay for the one that is going to take us to the next phase, that is going to help us not only be leaders, but also comply with state mandates. And that also going to take LA through a change of an infrastructure that is pretty remarkable, that is going to be the way that we are setting up the stage. We are setting up the stage for the next century of this city, of the way that we're going to design our energy, the way that we get our energy. This is no time to think small or be scared. This is the time to be bold and dream big. And that's what I want to see, as maybe as the youngest person here now, and as someone that often represents low income and a younger voice. That's what I want to see, and that's where I want my DWP to invest their money. And I think that if we go out there, we're going to probably have a lot of different opinions, but I think the majority of Angelinos, and probably the world, feel that way, that, you know, the grid wasn't designed for renewables because we didn't have them 100 years ago when we designed our grid. It was just not meant to be that way, but it doesn't need to be that way now. So thank you for your presentation.
Dr. Pickle?
I have 3 long discussions I'd like to have, and I suggest we do them on another day. But
suggestion accepted.
They include, as part of the education component, a discussion of the power industry timeline in terms of what happens from every 100 years or maybe 100,000 years down to milliseconds. So you understand a lot of these concepts have to come from various components of that, and that how that fits with the current market environment surrounding us. Issues like RMR and energy imbalance market. Second is a discussion on timing is everything, about how the energy industry has evolved, and it's been a continuous balancing between innovation and the appearance of shortage. And third, a discussion on the cost of carbon reduction versus the social cost of carbon versus the equilibrium where we may end up. And this is all a capital intensive business, and I've seen several cycles of it. When we get excited about something, we overbuild.
Those would be highly useful and relevant discussions to be held another day. You guys were great. Thank you very, very much. Very helpful.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Commissioner, if I could I just at this time, I wanted to congratulate Bill on his impending retirement and thank him for his 37 years of service with the department, and we're going to miss him.
Thank you. Thank you. Bill, are you related to the Barlacks of Bayonne, New Jersey?
Probably. Were they coal miners?
I don't know. I've just heard my wife reference them. So
New Jersey, yes, that's the Barlack clan. That's the home base.
We have item 21, Commissioner Noonan held. I think we should try to hear that now. And I understand from our general manager that the other management report can be deferred, even though we have a lot of customers interested in it, but let's do that. And then it'll take 2 seconds to do item 23.
And item 9 and 10?
Okay, just a second. Thank you. I always have a tendency to skip these things. Financial services report from October.
The financial services report is in your package. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Hearing none. Minutes of the board meeting of December 11th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second, those in favor?
Aye.
They're approved. 21, Commissioner Noonan.
Okay. There's actually quite a few issues that concern me with the request to approve this. First and foremost, having served on this commission, on this board for so long, I brought it up in previous years that I just kept seeing one contract after another contract be given to United States Pipe. And even though, there is a reference to, the $43 million contract that we executed back in 2011, I know prior to those years, we also executed substantial amounts of large contracts to U.S. Pipe. And I think we need to go further back than just 2011. And also for transparency reasons, I, as a commissioner, I think it's very important, and not just to show when a company has been given a contract time and again for a particular service or item, but I would like it footnoted in general, how much money have we exchanged for services with a certain firm. I think it's important to have that context because we are trying to increase the audience of vendors that bid on materials and services here at DWP. And I just don't think this tells the whole story. On top of that, I know that in 2011, the department did do a presentation of why we continued using U.S. Pipe and why we weren't exploring other pipes like PVC. I know you state here that steel and plastic pipe are used occasionally. I'd like information as to how, what percentage are we dedicating to different types of materials that are available. And I also think it's important when you do provide that information to discuss the price comparison of those materials. I also took issue with the fact that there was a protest for this bid from S&J Supply Company, and they stated that had you considered the fact that they were a local business enterprise, they would have came in as the lowest bid. And then I wasn't satisfied with the explanation that the department provided, stating that S&J did not provide sufficient documentation, and for that reason, they did not consider the fact that they were a local business enterprise. They didn't factor that into the bidding process, and I think that goes against everything that we've been advocating for as a board. The fact that we're continuing to just give U.S. Pipe, who they're based in Alabama, so many multi-million-dollar contracts and not supporting our local businesses, it just did not sit well with me. And and under Provision D, it states that the local business enterprise, it was not a determining factor in the evaluation and recommendation of award for this contract. Why is that the case? And is the department just going to pick and choose when they do want to consider that as a factor, as a recommendation? I think it's very important to, for the ratepayers and for our board to understand the thought process of giving another multi-million-dollar contract to a company based in Alabama and not one in Los Angeles.
Kevin Brown with Water Distribution. Supply chain's not here to answer the question on the local business, but they did do an evaluation of them. They offered prices with the local business configuration, but they did not meet all of the criteria of that requirement. And so they were not compared, their prices were not compared with that preference. Now, I believe the requirements they didn't meet had something to do with having substantial presence here in Los Angeles County. S&J is essentially a distributor. They have some offices here, but they don't really have significant staff here in LA County. It's a small operation, really. And they were bidding U.S. Pipe. They were going to be supplying U.S. Pipe to us at a slightly higher cost.
The differential wasn't that great between the two proposals, less than $1 million, closer to like 500 now.
Right. But, supply chain has their formal way of evaluating, and as the report says they didn't meet those requirements. So in answer to the second part, the reason why the local business program preference wasn't done is because they were the only ones that applied for it, and if they were kicked out because of that, there was no one left to apply it to. So in this particular case, there was no other bidders that claimed the local preference.
But I can address our use of U.S. pipe, if you'd allow me to. Early on in this department, there was two basic players with cast iron pipe, U.S. pipe and American cast iron pipe, and they were both operating in the East. And when those bids went every so often, it was back and forth, back and forth. There was a lot more participation by American pipe. In the late 60s, U.S. Pipe built a foundry in California. It's up near Oakland.
But aren't they closing it down?
No.
I thought I read that. Okay.
No, that's still operational. That's what gives them the edge. They don't have to pay the high cost of transportation, which for ductile iron pipe is high. It's very heavy. So we do have competition on these bids every time. And one of the competitors was bidding through Ferguson Waterworks. That was American cast iron pipe, and they came in $6 million higher, and it's all transportation cost.
Okay.
But they do actively bid every time we put this out, and we encourage competition. We've been reaching out to other pipe companies as well. You also know that we've been buying some pipe from Japan recently, the earthquake-resistant pipe. We're looking forward to that becoming more of a competitive product, as well as other products that are being developed. But that's just how it goes. U.S. Pipe has that edge to be able to be so competitive in pricing, just transportation cost.
By what percentage have we increased the use of PVC pipes?
We've been using PVC pipe, mainly plastic pipe, in hot soils, very corrosive soils, where metallic pipe just doesn't have a chance. We use a lot of it up on Owens Lake, and we used it in Venice Canals area recently, a couple years ago, but that's what we use that for. PVC pipe does not have the strength of ductile iron, does not have the strength of steel, so for earthquake resilience, we try to use the metal pipe where we can so that we have that additional resistance to breakage during an earthquake.
We can get you the breakdown of what it is, including Owens Lake, because it's almost exclusively used up there, and we have hundreds, if not thousands, of miles of pipe in use up there. Yeah.
Well, the explanation of the transportation costs helps because since that wasn't highlighted, I understand. And I thought I had read that they were closing the foundry in California, but your explanation helps a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
It's approved. Is there a motion to approve the establishment of the standing committees that I described earlier for Owens Valley Tribal and Executive Standing Committee?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those are approved. Council?
At this point, we will recess in a closed session to address the items on the closed session agenda and in accordance with California Government Code Section 54957B1 will report any final actions taken therein. We are in recess.
Very well done, Council.